Hey, Star Wars fans and Rule the Galaxy fans. Welcome to another week of Rule the Galaxy podcast. And right now, it's D-Doc hosting, and it's been a little while for me. I've actually missed the last 2 weeks. So I'm coming in here fresh right now. I'm feeling good. And it's been a while since we've had our guest on that we have tonight. And this is probably, I don't know, who knows? Maybe this might even be number 10. Jakejames Lugo, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me on again out here. You're technically both coming into this fresh since you've been doing stuff for a hot minute. I've been doing stuff for a hot minute. So it's a lot to talk about because so much things went down like most recently. But this should be fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So for anyone who might be listening to you for the first time, tell them what you do. I mean, obviously anyone who has listened knows what you do, but give everyone a little refresher on
nice good review or refresher for people that have been following the show, which they should be already. That's all I'm saying. But I'm Jakejames Lugo. I'm a writer, content creator, podcaster, media personality that covers a lot of things in the worlds of video games and the games industry, movies and entertainment, TV shows, pop culture, specifically also Star Wars. I have a passion and a love for all this stuff, but I'm on all over the place doing that stuff on YouTube, on TikTok, on Threads, on Twitter, all over the place, literally talking about the stuff, doing the podcast with you and everywhere else. I just love being a part of these things and it's just fun.
Absolutely. Whenever news drops, I always love to just run over to your TikTok and just see your takes on it. You know what I mean? It's like whether I agree or disagree with the take that you have, I just love that you put it out there. You know what I mean?
And that's how it should be, because
exactly.
my whole job is to put out perspective. It's my perspective, obviously my opinion, mostly based on facts, even though, everybody has an opinion and stuff, but like whenever stuff goes down and people want to know what's up and want to at least get a second opinion or a second, thought, just to have, I offer that to them. And, it just helps out. It keeps the conversation going for better or worse. What up, Dr. Squatch? Dr. Squatch has returned.
Dr. Squatch, one of the most loyal followers of Rule the Galaxy podcast. He's here.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on right now in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And, I have a lot of other topics to talk about, but I feel like we should just talk about it right away and just get it out of the way.
Get into it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Kick in the door like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Acolyte officially canceled, man.
Yep.
What I've seen your reviews of the episodes. Anyone who listened to this podcast knows that, all the hosts on this podcast had varying opinions on it. There were some episodes that I thought, okay, maybe something could come a little bit here, but then no, like it's probably the most critical I ever was of a show. I was honestly pretty worn out by the time it was
more critical than Kenobi. Because we were all critical with Kenobi, but like more critical than that.
Dude, if the Acolyte and Kenobi were back to back, I would be a broken man.
You'd be miserable.
I really would be. So before we get into it, we haven't had you on the podcast since the Acolyte came out. So why don't you let anyone listening right now know kind of where you stand on the show as a whole before we get into talking about the fact that it was canceled?
Yeah, sure. So overall, my opinions, I've reviewed every single episode, not just on TikTok. Keep in mind, I've also written reviews, like printed reviews on every single episode and also a season overview, just like a full review of the entire season as a whole, which now at this point is the entire series. So I've not only seen the show prior to it premiering on Disney Plus, because I went to the premiere, as you know. I think we talked about it on one of your podcasts. If not, I basically went to the theatrical premiere of the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, where I got invited to go check it out here down in South Florida. And I've been following this show even way before then. Like I was one of the people that was really interested in it because of the premise we were sold on with the show, which again, we'll get into after, with the cancellation stuff. The main thing is that this was not a good show. I've said many times throughout the series' run or the season's run of the first season, that it was just not good. There was this show has a lot of problems narratively, production wise, canon wise, in the greater Star Wars franchise. just the way that was promoted, the way that it was talked about, not just solely from the fans and the Star Wars community, but also specifically from the people involved with the production. So that means Leslie Headland, Amanda Lestenberg, Charlie, I think it's Charlie Barnett. I'm sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But a lot of these people, really the way that they were talking about the show and talking about Star Wars did not help the case for this. The overall quality for what we got, for what we saw on Disney Plus, for what this show ultimately became when it premiered and everybody could see it for what it is, was not good. And the numbers for it showed. I mean, I even said in a number of my reviews, like, look, there has always still been potential here for this concept, but this execution is horrible. This is vastly inferior compared to some of the other shows that people point to that aren't that good for Star Wars. And we're talking live action shows. We're not talking animation. So that means like some of the worst shows we've gotten lately, at least people look as the worst, is like the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 3, Kenobi, obviously. I mean, you could argue anything, even Ahsoka to some cases for some people, even though I like Ahsoka, there were still problems with that show in some way or form. But at least with a lot of those other shows, many of us, myself included, can say that I was looking forward to watching them every single week, every single episode that came out. And with this one, things just got progressively worse and worse and worse by the time we got to that season finale. And there's a lot of issues that I have with the show. I've talked about in my reviews where some of the cameos either made no sense or were completely useless and were a waste that I think did a lot of damage to the Star Wars brand as far as bringing characters from Legends into canon. I think also some of the concepts and the descriptions and the kind of observations that this show has about elements of Star Wars, like the Force, like the Jedi Order, like the High Republic itself. There's many things about this show that just approach these different things and different concepts and different established ideas and, certain elements of Star Wars canon that just don't work here in this show. And it's a shame because nobody, including myself, and I'm pretty sure including you too, Dave, nobody wants to see a show fail. Nobody wants to see a show, especially a Star Wars show, do terrible or do bad or end up faltering in some way. And that's what we ended up getting here. And it's a shame because we can't help, or at least a lot of us, including myself, that has been talking about this from week to week, can't help but come out and say, like, I told you so, which is the result we got now with the show that's been canceled. And I wouldn't recommend this show. Like I've said in my series and my season overview and my review of all the episodes, I said, like, I can't really recommend this show to anybody, even if you're a diehard Star Wars fan or if you're just trying to get into Star Wars for the first time, regardless of the opinions of other content creators or other people out there on social media. The objective facts that we have here is that this show was terrible, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Absolutely. And I can't agree more with what you said about the fact that we want it to be a good Star Wars show. Me and you wish that we were on this podcast episode right now talking about, man, that was one of the best Star Wars shows I've ever seen. You know what I mean? We want to get fired up.
The pitch for the Acolyte was a focus on the dark side and the focus on just, the bad guys of this portion of the Star Wars universe or the Star Wars timeline in the High Republic. The idea of like we might get an insight into Sith training, a lot of stuff that people have already talked about many times over. But I think right now, us and many others that watch this show with that anticipation just feel like we were sold snake oil. Like we were kind of lied to in a way. And it does seem like that. Like there are certain episodes and certain moments and scenes you could point to that involves stuff like that quote unquote delivered for some people, but it didn't really deliver. It just used this as a talking point and just gave us what we got.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell by the way it ended that they thought without a doubt that they're going to be getting a second season, because now that that's what it is. I mean,
well, here's funny you should say that, because there was a thing that came up from John Roca that he reported on, because he got sources that are connected heavily to Lucasfilm, which I'm pretty sure he talked to someone over there that said that as far back as February, they were talking about bringing together a writer's room for season 2. Like they had a soft green light, apparently. Like they were actually thinking about doing this. And what I think happened, to be honest with you, and again, we could continue onward with what you were going to say, was that I think that once the ratings for the first couple of episodes started coming out, I think Lucasfilm and really probably Disney panicked. I think that when things started to progressively go downward from the first 2 seasons, the first 2 episodes, which was the season premiere at the start of it, I just think that they all panicked, because you don't just spend $180 million to cancel a show so quickly like they did. Remember, it's only been a month since the show ended or the season ended, and now they're canceling it. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, no, it seems like it seems like the renew the Acolyte hashtag started to like kind of people started to post that, and I feel
Oh
like
man, don't even get me started on that thing.
I almost feel like the Band-Aid was ripped off right away. I feel like they were just like, we're putting out anything before it starts here. It's not happening. Like
You know,
it's
I
done.
think part of that also was, keep in mind, Skeleton Crew got its first showing, and I think that there was a lot of speculation amongst different people. And a couple other peeps I've seen online mention this, was that I think maybe they wanted to shift the focus solely on just Skeleton Crew and also the Mandalorian and Grogu announcements that we saw at D23 without the much speculation and the continuing conversation about the Acolyte. I think that's a PR thing, but I think that's only a small fraction of why this all came to a head with the cancellation of the season, because I just feel like they were so, or at least some people over there were so gung ho about doing a season 2, and the way that it ended was so much for setting up a second season. It just by design just wasn't going to work at some point once those reactions started coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a comment from Dr. Squatch here. He said hurts more to me because I feel like the story was a cool idea. I just feel like it was executed terribly.
Yeah, but I don't think that the story was a good idea, because I think the biggest flaw of the story overall, and I've seen Christian Harloff mention this, so I got to give him credit for this, but he's totally right on this. The story between the two twins, Osha and May, was a terrible idea, and the way that it was executed was even worse. That made it even feel worse. If it was just a show about Jackie Long, which is Daphne Keene's character, and Charlie's character Yord, and then involving Master Soul with Lee Jong Jae, and it was them being the focus, trying to find like who's this Sith person or like running around at this time, or this dark side user, completely different show. We would be having an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, those were some of those characters were the ones in the beginning where I'm just like, all right, like I'm starting to get to know a couple of these guys a little bit, and then they were killed off right away. I think the show thought it was so good that they could kill off these characters right away.
I don't
That
even think
were
that, to be honest with you. I think that they just completely underestimated not only just how good their story was or how bad their story was in reality, but also I feel like there was just such like a like such a crazy, just unfocused nature with a lot of aspects of this story. Like one of the biggest things that I think is a big problem with this show, and this is a problem with most other Star Wars shows, but they have a better handling of it because of their time frames. This show doesn't give anybody a good reason, whether you're a fan of or not, or you're just a new Star Wars fan, of what you want to do and why you want to be in the High Republic. That was the biggest thing. Remember, this is the first live action Star Wars show that takes us to the High Republic from the books. Now, let's also keep in mind too, because we talked about this, I know, in one of your previous episodes, the books don't mean anything. And that's the live action series' fault, because of how Dave Filoni and a few others have handled the continuity from the books, the novels, and the comic books stuff. They just completely don't care. It feels like they, in the past, they've once tried to say that they matter, but they really don't matter. So everybody's, or at least a good chunk of people's first exposure to the High Republic was going to be in this show. And I don't think they sold it at all to anybody.
No, I was thinking to myself, all right, this was a High Republic era-based show. I've never read a single High Republic book. After watching this show, do I have a good idea of what the High Republic was? Absolutely not.
Do you even want to be in the High Republic after this? And it's like this felt like literally, because remember, this takes place about 100, 180 years prior to, or 135 to 100 years prior to Phantom Menace, which we could get into some of the other problems we had with canon with that. But the point is, though, it still feels like the prequels. It's not the High Republic. It doesn't feel like the High Republic, at least from what I've seen in the visual material from the novels and even the comics that have come out that have been around for a while. Like even some of the characters like Vernestra, which was played by Leslie Helen's wife. That character apparently is different in the books than what we got in the show. And it's like, I totally believe that, because she was not a likable character at all. There's a lot of people that I've seen review this show say she was probably one of the worst characters in the entire series. And, and I can't help but agree with them. Like, what does she do that's actually either likable, let alone even relatable or interesting?
Yes, and I've seen Jess, who's been on our podcast, Dark Saber Light. She's very knowledgeable of the High Republic, and she definitely took issue with the way a lot of this stuff was done, as well as Okairo, which Okairo, we're going to have him on here again at one point, because he always brings some good knowledge as well on it. But yeah, it's definitely been interesting to see all of this pan out through Twitter, and I don't know. It's odd. It really is. It's
let me tell you something. Like, we could get into it as well. There are a lot of people that are being very dishonest and disingenuous about this show, and also not really seeing it and refusing to be like, straight up and see things for what they are with how this show was received and the outcome of this. A lot of people were saying like, oh, this show needed another season or two to really find its footing like other shows in the past. Let me tell you something. Other shows in the past weren't costing $180 million for 8 episodes like that. And number two, they were better written. A lot of, what the example that people kept pointing to, and this one got me annoyed a lot when it was pointed out to, Star Trek TNG, The Next Generation, right? A lot of people are saying like the first few seasons of that series isn't all that great and that it needed some time to cook. Let me tell you something. Back then, because I remember when TNG was premiering, those first couple seasons, a lot of people liked TNG back then, even though the later seasons are so much better than the first few. The point is, though, not only did it not have that price tag, but the writing is significantly better. And the storytelling and the characters are significantly better than what we have here in The Acolyte. So what is that type of logic? Like, I kept seeing that get passed around. And I was questioning myself, like, do these people even know what they're talking about? Like, do these people even understand, like, why Disney and Lucasfilm canceled this? Or they opted out not to do a second season, which, by the way, according to John Roca, they actually canceled it because of their plans that they were doing inside. They just don't like using the term canceled publicly lately.
Yeah. Yeah. And why don't you had mentioned something before the podcast about Disney stores. Why don't we go into that? What you had told me before.
So this happened recently within the last day or so, ever since the announcement came out, right? Because I think the announcement's only been around for like a day? Yeah, about a day and a half, give or take.
Yeah,
but
it's still fresh.
Ever since that came out, right? That they canceled they canceled the show. They're not doing season 2 of The Acolyte. The merchandise in the Disney store was removed. And I heard this at first and I was like, there's no way. That doesn't make any sense. Like they could still sell merchandise of the show despite the show not being on there because it'll be on Disney Plus. I went to go check it myself and I used a Google search to backtrack towards where the actual pages might be because I found like an image of one of the shirts that they were selling as a product. I go to that actual page on the Disney official store. It's not there. It's 404. It means that they removed it and they took out the link. That's not a good sign for this show because a lot of people are pointing out, and it's totally fair. You could go back and look at this. This is the exact same thing that happened to the Willow show on Disney Plus before they removed it from Disney Plus. And I think that we might be seeing, there's a strong possibility we might be seeing this same thing happen with The Acolyte. And a lot of people are going to be very upset, but can you blame them?
Yeah. And you might know this. I'm not sure, but what is the logic in them removing the Willow show? Do they not have to pay royalties to the
No, I think it has to do with getting a tax write-off. Because I know that with movies, when you get a tax write-off on your production, nobody could actually see it anymore. Like it gets locked in a vault, like it doesn't get re-released or anything like that. It might be a little bit different for TV shows and especially with Disney because they own all that stuff. So maybe they don't have to do certain licensing or certain other stuff, on the back end. I'm not sure exactly, but I know that once that happens, you can't find Willow stuff at all. Like it's just completely like yeeted out of existence from Disney Plus. So the same thing on the Disney store. You don't find any Willow stuff on the Disney store. I'd be very surprised if you did. There's obviously third-party like stores and online retail outlets you could go to, but official Disney merchandise or outlets and Disney store, you're not going to find that. So that's what's happening with The Acolyte at the current moment. Now, you could go to the Star Wars section on there. If you're listening to the podcast, you could actually see this for yourself. Everything there is all prequel and original trilogy stuff. And I think probably Mandalorian stuff. Like a lot of for obvious reasons, but like, no Acolyte shirts, no Acolyte. Remember those Acolyte figures, the Black Series? You can't find those on there. And the same thing with also, I think they had was it the helmet, the Stranger helmet that was made such a big deal about a month ago. I want to say you can't find that on there at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'll tell you this: one of the first things that I was suspicious about this show was it's the first Disney thing I've seen that there was not, which Lego sets usually leak like a couple days before they're actually about to come out. Not a single Lego set was made for this show.
Oh yeah, not at all. There was no toys. Like the Black Series toys are the only toys I know of that they made for the Acolyte. And by the way, the majority of people that have those that you saw on social media were all influencers that they sent them to, which should tell you something. Should tell you something pretty clearly, not just about the quality of the toys themselves or just the idea of those being sold, but just there was a lack of confidence in this that you don't really see in other Star Wars shows. A lot of other shows that people point to is not that great, with maybe the exception of Andor, because that's such an anomaly. But everything else has gotten much more love and a lot more merchandising stuff than what we saw with the Acolyte.
Yeah, I mean, The Mandalorian is like a merch god, like you
Now,
can't go
when
anywhere
it first
without.
started, they didn't think it was going to be good until people at the Disney park started asking for Grogu and
Yeah.
in like droves, and they realized how badly they messed up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's
Now
just
you can't
funny to
get enough
me.
Grogu. He's
Exactly.
everywhere.
He's everywhere now. And it's like, all right, wow, you like accidentally struck. I won't say accidentally. That's the wrong way to phrase it. But
They almost fumbled the ball, but they recovered.
yeah,
Literally.
you caught that magic where you have a good Star Wars show where you also have a ton of merch you can make from it and sell that people want to have, similar to the old days with the prequels or OT. Like, like that's always been a big part of Star Wars, is the people who buy the Star Wars stuff
Yeah.
outside of the shows. I mean, I was a Black Series collector. I don't know that I could call myself that anymore, just because I only look for it at Ollie's now. I don't buy it at full price
Yeah, but
just
you
because
still
it's too
collect it though. You still
expensive.
pick it up. But
Oh
those
yeah.
are expensive. They add up. Like they're just nice
Oh
pieces of
yeah, yeah. Their regular prices usually now. Well, it's almost $30 to get a Black Series, and you go to Ollie's, which like they're just. I stopped by an Ollie's today for a couple minutes and looked at their Black Series figures. They are loaded on them, and they're $10. So it's
there you
like
go. That's how you do
you
it.
just wait it out, and they're gonna show up there. But the ones for the Acolyte, it's just each Jedi and a lightsaber wearing the same outfit. So it's
Yeah.
like there's just
Which, by
nothing.
the way, in the show, some people said they liked some of the outfits. I'll tell you right now, those outfits look basic, because you could go back to the prequel trilogy and you can see a little bit more personality with all the different outfits from the Jedi we see in the prequels, not just the Jedi Council like that.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot more. It seems like there was a lot more thought put into the outfits and just the overall visuals and the presentation of other Star Wars projects, especially not the Acolyte, the Mandalorian, compared to the Acolyte. Because the Acolyte, I feel like you look at all those Jedi that we saw in there that just did not mean anything, that they just look very basic. Which, by the way, one thing I didn't say here now, but I said in my reviews, I'm not a fan of how this show portrayed the Jedi and the way that they were trying to allude them to being with the High
Yeah.
Republic. Like, I just don't like the idea that they're presented like a police force or like a police officers. I just think that so misunderstands a lot of the stuff about Jedi in the series. It's so
Yeah.
crazy to me.
I mean, how do you think which his name is escaping me right now, Soul's actor feels
Oh,
about?
Lee
Yeah.
Jong-jae.
How do you think he feels about the character he portrayed and his ending in that show?
Let me tell you something. I think that the ones that are probably feeling a type of way is not just Lee Jong-jae, but also I think Daphne Keane, and I think also Chimere's actor. Again, I saw his Manny
Mhm.
Jacinto. I think they're all probably feeling a type of way, given that the series is over and stuff. But I think everybody likes Manny Jacinto's character Chimere for whatever ridiculous reasons, but they still like him. Same thing with Daphne Keene's character, especially with their visuals and stuff. I think there's a lot of other very disingenuous things pulled from that still garners her fans, but it is what it is. I think the actors or the actresses were not bad. Why I feel bad for Jion Jae, though, is because not only did he learn or try to learn English for the role, which I think is a huge level of dedication to try to learn a whole nother language to speak, which you could tell he was having trouble with that even in the show when he was talking. They needed to have better takes and a better dialect coach with him to actually deliver his lines, because he has a very heavy accent. Even though he's trying to come off as like, a stoic Jedi with the way he speaks and stuff, it's just very, there needed to be more done there to make that a little bit better presentable. But also his character was completely assassinated, just the way that they handled him by the end, which I think was horrible. One of the worst decisions for that guy. There's no way that you could tell me that his arc, quote unquote, by the end of the series or the end of the season was at any way like a justifiable one for his character. Like it's horrible. And then that's why a lot of people don't like Vernestra with what she does by the end, which again, we're not getting too much into spoilers, but the point is all that stuff just coming together, especially after the fight scenes he has with the lightsaber against Chimere. I feel like all that just gets ruined. Like a lot of the different elements that you could point to that are good, quote unquote, aspects about the Acolyte as a series gets overshadowed by the fact that those characters don't matter. And those characters, one of which people liked, just gets completely demolished by not even a couple seconds later. It's
Yeah.
wild to me.
Yeah, and that's what when we had our finale episode on here, I was just like, the happy ending here is Saul being murdered by his Padawan, and then we
And
are,
everybody being okay with it.
and
Like,
then we're all happy. He was such a bad guy, like it's like
never
it's
mind the logic problems that are in multiple episodes of this show. But I think for as far as Lee Jong Jae's character of Master So, I feel like people liked him because he seemed interesting at first and automatically did not care once things start to happen, because some of his decisions and other characters' decisions throughout the show are completely questionable and just a symptom of bad writing, just like really stupid motivations or really stupid actions and reactions to certain events. But just the payoff, that's really the word I was looking for. The payoff for all this stuff was so shallow and just disappointing. Like I said, it doesn't make any of this series really matter.
Yeah. So I won't be surprised if it's possibly erased from Disney Plus existence.
I mean, it sucks to say that. Like, really think about this. Like, a Star Wars show getting yeeted out of Disney Plus. Like, think about that. Like, we couldn't even fathom something like that because of the brand, of Star Wars being so big. It's wild to me. And like I said, there's just a lot of people on social media even with that hashtag renew the Acolyte, we're being so disingenuous and so in denial about what the reality is with this show. It has nothing to do with a hate mob of people that are trying to like hate on the show or anything like that. Like, there are people out there and you got to ignore that noise. But when you really get down to it, I saw people that were diehard film people that review TV shows and movies for a living that wanted this show to succeed, were very supportive of this show, that could not defend it. They were like, this show is not good. This show is borderline garbage in some cases. And, we just got to ignore all that. We all just got to be like, no, let's do another $180 million to $200 million costing season to get it right. It's like, no, you got to get it right now. And you did not get it right. And it is what it is.
Yeah. So pile this in to the the Star Wars hotel that, what was that, 1.5 billion? I forget how much.
I don't even remember.
I forget. I might be totally off on that.
It was a lot. I know that they dropped on it.
Yeah, but pile this into that, and then Dr. Squatch has a question. Said, "Sorry, I missed this. Why do you think people are being disingenuous about?"
All right, so I guess we should get into the whole hashtag thing that happened on Twitter. So if you didn't see it, and you could go see it now, even on my Twitter now, I put out a take before the announcement of the Acolyte being canceled. I had a take about it that was saying, like, look, I don't think we need a season 2. I don't think we're going to get a season 2. And here's the reasons why. And it was basically saying, like, look, like, a lot of people just didn't like the show. They didn't watch it, clearly. The Nielsen numbers, which track the different viewing rates and the numbers and the minutes watched of all these shows on every single streaming platform. And they were showing for the Acolyte that it was progressively going down every single week, like the lowest viewed Star Wars live action show, period. Like, the worst. It had the worst season finale viewing and numbers to date, the worst performance. And I was making a point, it's like, look, we don't need a second season of this because nobody watched it, nobody cared about it. It caused a lot of, I use the term gargantuan amount of problems for the Star Wars franchise as a brand, which it did. Clearly, multiple people, even, like I said, film people that I follow in multiple areas of the entertainment industry, all said the exact same thing as me in different ways. And I got a very bad backlash from a lot of people from that Renew the Acolyte hashtag, that not only were coming from me personally, but also were making statements that were just completely false and completely delusional about what the show had did and the performance of the show. People were coming out saying it was the best Disney Plus live action Star Wars series, better than The Mandalorian, the best, most watched series this year. I'm like, y'all do realize House of the Dragon's right over there, right? Or The Boys, or The Bear, like, come on now. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we done or are we finished? Like, it's so ridiculous. And this just kept going on. Like, even if you go back to my old tweet, there were people quote tweeting Star Wars content creators that were quote tweeting me, some of which we've talked about and mentioned in passing in the previous podcast I've been on, that were being delusional and just being mad, insulting and nasty. And like I said, being hyper disingenuous about this show. It's like, look, I get it. I wanted this show to succeed like you wanted it to succeed, Dave. we're cool with any type of Star Wars story. A lot of people wanted it to succeed because it had a bunch of different people of color that were fitting different parts and stuff, that it was minority voices being highlighted and all these other things. I get it. And I don't focus on that all the time, but I get it. And I'm cool with it as long as the stories are good. The story wasn't good here, and the numbers clearly showed it, because all these people that were rah-rahing for the renew the Acolyte hashtag, where were y'all when the numbers were coming in? Where were y'all when it actually mattered to watch this show? You didn't watch it, and they show it. Like literally, I was even writing an entire article, a feature on the outerhaven.net, which is the site I write for now when I do different stuff. That's where all my Acolyte reviews are at. I was doing a feature about why did the Acolyte get canceled, and I went and I found all the Nielsen and other streaming like aggregate number like trackers to actually show it, and links to like some of the different Reddit threads that were showing this stuff. And it's like people just completely choose to ignore that. You saw a lot of Star Wars content creators on Twitter with that hashtag, and also on TikTok, that were just completely ignoring the fact that this data exists. It's like, that's not the workings, and that's not the result of like nasty people in the fandom. That's not the results of haters of the show that wanted to just hate the show or quote unquote review bomb the show, which, by the way, review bombing means nothing to a lot of these companies. Like, they don't care if the Acolyte had made a lot of like impact with a lot more bigger viewership than like the Mandalorian or something, they wouldn't care. They'd spend the $200+ million immediately. Who cares if they review bomb the show on Rotten Tomatoes or something? Like, they don't care about that. Like,
exactly.
But the point is, they didn't do that, or at least the show didn't do that. And people all over the place were just ignoring this stuff. And it was like, I didn't deserve the backlash that I got for making a pretty level-headed and fair statement. But also, I didn't deserve to be like personally attacked by some of these same people that go online defending the show and also trying to say that they want more positivity in the Star Wars community, which, I don't think I deserve to have my fandom questioned. Clearly, apparently I'm a fake Star Wars fan for writing about the Acolyte and about other Star Wars shows, or that I'm a disingenuous person for reviewing the Acolyte or making the statement that I made about the results of a poorly delivered show. It's crazy, but it is what it is. And clearly I was right. This is why when the announcement came out, I was like, you see, I was right. But are any of y'all going to be big enough to apologize? It is what it is.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting to see the numbers and how they dropped off. And I mean, how many of those numbers are people like us who are just like, I'm not enjoying this show, but I'm a Star Wars fan and I want to see what's going to happen and if this can save itself, because it's almost like I would compare it to being a fan of your sports team. And if they're on a bad run, like say I'm a fan of the Eagles, say they've been bad for 6 years and I'm complaining, I'm saying, what the hell are these guys doing? They need to get it together, whatever. It's like, oh, well, am I not allowed to be a fan of them still? I want them to be great. I want them to be good. Like, I'm not just trying to hate here. And if I'm hating on it, it doesn't mean I'm personally hating on you. Like, if and I shouldn't even say hating, if I'm being critical of a show that you like, it doesn't mean I'm personally attacking you for liking.
You know what it is? And the Star Wars community suffers from this, from very bad actors in the sense. And I don't mean bad actors like actors in the shows. I mean bad actors as far as people that go online that are content creators that talk about this stuff, or even just fans that want to engage in the conversation, but they're not engaging with good faith. Like, you can't tell me that someone who's critical of the Acolyte as a show automatically is a bigot, because there's a lot of people I know that cover a lot of different shows in Hollywood, not just Star Wars, but review TV shows and movies and media and entertainment and stuff. And a lot of them did not like the show. And they unfortunately had to admit that. It's like, look, this show's just not good. Are you going to call them a bigot now for being critical of this, or just pointing out a lot of the problems with this? Or even people that are Star Wars fans, that like Christian Harloff, for example, he got a bunch of crap for saying his opinions about the Acolyte, for saying like, look, this was a terrible show and it just did no favors to the franchise. It did a lot of brand damage. And a lot of people were coming at him saying those same things, questioning his fandom. By the way, a guy that has the Sith Council that's been around for years. Like, it's somewhat crazy, like over the top statements that a lot of these people, and a lot of, like I said, a lot of some of those content creators that were trying to rah-rah for this show and try to have quote unquote positivity in the fandom, but their actions are contradictory to that. And their emotions, their reactions that are very based on emotions are indications of that. And it's a shame, because my take, or Christian Harloff's take, or John Campia's take, or your take, or anybody's take out there, like Perry Marinoff or Grace Randolph, because a lot of people like to pick on Grace Randolph. She was even a big supporter of the Acolyte at the very start. And she came up by the end, is like, yeah, this is like the biggest fall off that we've seen ever. Like, it's one of the worst things that we've seen in a while from Star Wars. She's not a bigot. She champions a lot of like, things that people want to see when it comes to people of color or minority stories or other things out there that's a little bit different than what we've always gotten. The point is, though, is that type of rhetoric and that type of stuff thrown out there is just being thrown out there by these people that don't understand what they're doing, let alone even know what they're talking about. And it's a shame. It's a shame that a lot of that gets spotlighted and it gets thrown onto people that definitely don't deserve it.
Yeah. It's definitely been an interesting ride with the Acolyte, and if it does get Thanos snapped off of Disney Plus, it's going to get even crazier.
Wait until that if that is actually indication, like what's going on with Disney, the Disney store now. If that actually happens, those people are going to just lose their damn mind, and it's going to be like, well, too bad. If you're talking about all this stuff, you should have watched it, or you should have gotten your friends to watch it, because the people that did watch it, like it did get like 11 million minutes for like the first like two episodes or 3 episodes like that. And then there was a big drop off from there. Like the people watched it or started to watch it and then fell off. They were like, I'm done. I'm out. You can't blame them. That's how most shows are, but most shows aren't premiering and going along as one of the worst live action adaptations for a franchise, period. You're not seeing that from House of the Dragon and that has dropped off, but look at that. Or The Boys or oh my God, what was on? Emily in Paris just happened. Look, even My Lady Jane, I was talking about this because this was one of the examples I used in my tweet. Shows get canceled all the time and stuff like that. But at least, when they deliver and stuff, there's other reasons for why they might get canceled and such. It could be big budget. It could be like just people aren't resonating watching the show. My Lady Jane got canceled after 1 season and it still found its audience and stuff. So shows get canceled for very little reason sometimes. Yeah. It could be one thing and not like a cavalcade of stuff like what happened with the Acolyte.
Yeah. And what hurt me with this show beyond any storytelling or anything, with the budget and with the visuals, it did not look or feel, it did not give me the Star Wars vibes. It didn't look good on the screen. That's one thing that also just got
there are
to
very
me.
Few things that did, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
Some people point to the lightsaber fights. I think the lightsaber fights were probably the best aspects of the show, but they were bigged up and they were hyped up to be better than the Phantom Menace fight. It's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Like after seeing it now, let's be honest with ourselves. Like that was nonsense. And I give it credit for trying things new, because remember that second fight between Soul and Chimere, that was clearly inspired and clearly was just copying elements of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which even then I said, like, look, it seems cool, but it's so out of place compared to the rest of the series. Like if all the fights were like that, then I understand. Then I'd be like, okay, this is different. This is a different type of approach to combat with lightsabers in a Star Wars show. But it wasn't like that. That was just kind of thrown in there. And everybody said like, oh, it's one of the greatest lightsaber duels ever. Like, come on now.
Yeah. When Chimere first showed up, I was like, all right, damn, like what's going on here? Like I liked his style of fighting and everything. And then I'm pretty sure, I feel like the next episode went into another flashback or something. And it just lost all momentum.
Literally, like they go back in time. They ruin their momentum after that whole conflict. The other thing too that they ruined too, and I want to know your thoughts on this, when they finally sit down to talk about cortosis, they showed it, and it was like they never talked about it prior to Chimere using it in a lightsaber duel when he was fighting all those Jedi. Then the next episode, they finally talk about it, and then the next episode they go to a flashback that has nothing to do with any of this stuff like that. I felt it was like the worst handling of introducing an element from Legends into canon, and I compared it to what they did with Beskar. With Beskar, there's like a gradual buildup for it, like that you see the armor talking about it, and the Mandalorian covets it. Then she makes the armor for him. Then you see him use it in battle when he gets shot or he gets the Beskar spear. Like there's a much better buildup with that and how its application is used. And I was like, how can you do that for cortosis, which is such a big thing in Legends? For some people. And then don't even get me started on the other things they ruined from Legends. Like,
and my mind just went to the Kyber Crystal live action.
That's not what I was thinking of. I still think that's pretty stupid too. But I was talking about more about Darth Plagueis, which to me is such an egregious. You ruined the introduction into canon from a really beloved Legends character that people have been waiting years for, and you just kind of threw him in there, and it wasn't even a good rendition of him as far as him like creeping behind in a cave. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's like
totally
Gollum.
contradictory to what he does in the books and what he talks about in the books. Like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
I even said I remember the watch party, because I was in a watch party looking at this stuff from Star Wars Theories thing, and looking at his reaction to it was hilarious, and everybody else's reaction was hilarious. But you look at that scene, and it's like, who over there at Lucasfilm thought that was a good idea? You know,
I
that
was
was
like,
besides Leslie Helen.
no, please don't be
Like it
him.
was just, it's like, why would you do that's? Like trying to introduce like the Yuzon Vong, but they appear for like 2 seconds. It's like, whoa. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just do that for such a lame throwaway cameo, even to set up a second season. It's like, no, you gotta go back and talk about this. Like, you just don't do that to a character of that magnitude.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name other than Plagueis. Is it Hugo?
Oh,
my
Hugo
God.
Damask.
Yeah, Hugo Damask. He was like a genius, like financer, like he was like wheeling and dealing, like he knew
He
what
was
the hell was
hiding in
going
plain
on.
sight, and that was this whole thing. That's where Darth Sidious and Palpatine got that from. Hiding
Yeah.
in plain sight, like not doing anything as a Sith, but you're right in front of them, and you're like this close to their face, and they don't realize. Like, that was his whole thing. So what the hell is he doing hiding in a cave on a planet? By the way, they never say the name of the planet that actually it comes that they're on, but they have it because of the cortosis mind thing that Chimera points out. They just never say what the planet is in the show, even though everybody knows what it is. It was so stupid
Yeah.
that the way that they handled all that.
Yeah, it was I don't know. I mean, it is interesting. D23 happens, and then like a week after D23, boom, it's not happening anymore. Which I
That's
feel
not
like
even the
Disney.
worst part of it, too. The saltiest part was that they canceled it or did the announcement of the cancellation on Manny Jacinto's birthday, literally, which is I'm like, even for that's low. Like, and I get it. One thing doesn't really connect to the other, but like somebody over there probably should have been like, let's at least wait a day or two. You know what I mean? Like, or do it beforehand or something. It just isn't a good look. And a lot of people make those connections, even though they probably had nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, which he did do a good, in my opinion. If I can choose a bright spot in the show, I thought that he put his all into his character, and I think his character had potential on his own. I do think that every time his character, again, going back, every time his character caught momentum, the show found a way to kind of take it away. Then he had to build it back up. Then they took it away. Then, like, it was just a little. I don't know. He did. I thought he did a pretty good job with.
I also
with
give
his
him
role.
credit for going to D23 and being the one. He was the only person from the Acolyte that was at D23 during that panel and stuff. And he at least showed up. He did the thing, because I don't think any of the cast knew that the show was getting canceled before all that stuff. I think that Lucasfilm people, probably Leslie Headland, knew way in advance before they announced it, but I don't think that the cast knew. So, I mean, it kind of sucks because he was there, he's promoting, he was being a team player, and being a good sport about it. So to get the news afterwards is kind of crappy, but at least, he is a team player, and I think he'll definitely get another project, either with Lucasfilm or with Disney. I'm pretty sure he'll get something. Same thing with Jilong J and even Daphne Keene. Granted, she obviously is doing her Marvel stuff with X-23 because she came off of Deadpool and Wolverine. But like all these other people that are actually good in the show with what they had to work with, and at least what they had to kind of deal with, I think they'll at least get something, or at least you'll see them again in another project.
Yeah,
maybe not as these characters though.
Exactly. Yeah, and we have more shows coming out for Star Wars. That's just the crappy part of all of this is, when you're talking about people saying it hurts the brand, and if people are like, "What do you mean it hurts the brand in any type of way?" It's like,
I'm like, dude, I wrote a whole editorial
consistency
about this. Like, it's crazy to me that, because I saw those responses to my tweet about it. I was like, you do realize, I didn't respond to them, but I'm thinking to myself, you do realize I have a whole op-ed and all my episode reviews talk about why why it's like does a lot of damage to the brand. But I think it also creates an uncertainty for specifically Star Wars moving forward. Like, if we got this happening with the Acolyte, which was hyped up pretty much, by Lucasfilm for a long time, and now this is the result that we got. A year afterwards, it's canceled. What does that say for other projects that they had in the pipeline? Which obviously Skeleton Crew is one. What does that say for a future Mandalorian project? And keep in mind, we also have a Star Wars animated show that's being worked on right now that they didn't talk about at D23, but it's in the works right now. Like, you have to ask those questions. And here's another thing. I should have mentioned this earlier. John Roca, I think it was either John Roca or somebody else, had brought it up on one of his shows that after the cancellation of the Acolyte, there was a halting of other stuff and other projects at Lucasfilm. I think it was John Roca's show, not Sith Council, the Sith Way or something like that. I forgot what his Star Wars show is, but it's on his podcast. It's one of his most recent episodes on YouTube where he talks about it with his two other hosts. And he says, like, yeah, everything kind of just came to a halt for a bit. Like, they're really reevaluating stuff. And I think it's really Disney that's kind of taking stock of everything, because you're seeing that with Marvel. You're seeing that with some of their own projects. So I don't put it past them to do the same with Lucasfilm finally in some way, because I think if anything, Lucasfilm needed it the most, besides Marvel, with a lot of stuff that happened with Lucasfilm over the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've lost probably, I don't know. I looked up the Star Wars hotel, and they say the building cost estimates range from 350 million to
1
that's
right. Almost 400 million. That's right.
Yeah, so 350 million to 1 billion. So let's meet in the middle there. Let's say it's
I say about
600 million.
About 4 to 5. Because I don't think it cost them $1 billion. That seems like a little bit much. Yeah. I remember reporting it. I just don't remember the number it was that time ago, because it's been a hot minute since we even thought about this Galactic Star Cruiser.
but the sad part about all of it is Disney's probably lost almost $1 billion on Star Wars stuff, because I don't know that the Acolyte helped Disney Plus in any kind of way.
No,
I don't know that it brought subscribers in.
I don't think so.
Here's what was assigned to me that I got nervous about. I was in Disneyland over in California after the first 2 episodes premiered. I saw one sign for the Acolyte anywhere on all Disney property. I was in California Adventure. I was in Disneyland. All I saw was this lightsaber display, which was pretty awesome, honestly. And in the corner, it had the Acolyte written about this big.
Oh, they didn't have any lightsaber hilts or anything like that, because they didn't do any legacy lightsabers for any of the characters, right?
No. And it was in Tomorrowland. I'm in Tomorrowland, and I see all these lightsabers lit up on a wall. Like, picture you have all these lightsabers lined up to kind of make an arch on a board. And it was like a photo op spot. And I'm like, this is pretty sick. Like, that's a cool picture. I went and got a picture with it. Then I saw in the corner, it said the Acolyte on it. I'm just like, all right, like, they're advertising the Acolyte, but it was just a bunch of random lightsaber hilts on it. And it looked cool, but I saw that. And I saw one poster in downtown Disney, and that was it. And I'm like, you got a brand new Star Wars show
downtown
coming
Disney,
out.
I can expect that to happen. But you would think also, even in Doc Ondar's, maybe to have something, or any of the Black Spire Outpost shops. Because funny enough, I know you could find that High Republic kid show merchandise that's around that's pretty cheap. I know I've seen that at stores, because I know that they pass that around. Maybe it's because it's also a family show, in that case. But with the Acolyte, I would have expected at least something in Doc Ondar's or something like that.
Yeah, I did not see any type of physical merch or anything. I mean, it was just, like you said, just a lot of original trilogy, prequel. There's a lot of cool merch there, I'll say that. Oh my God, names.
Galaxy Edge.
No, the
Doc Ondar's.
The voice actress for Ahsoka. I can't believe.
Oh, Ashley Eckstein.
Ashley Eckstein. Yeah, she runs a great clothing brand.
Oh, her universe, it's called. Yeah.
She puts out some sick stuff, because they make clothes for guys and stuff too. Like,
but keep in mind, it's a third-party outlet. That's not official Disney merchandise. That's the thing. Like, this is why the stuff with the Disney store is so significant, because they don't got nothing, and it's their show. And you just had that not even a month ago. Yeah, it's not a good sign.
Yeah. So as we move on to other topics and we lay the Acolyte to rest, you got any other final thoughts on the show that we might have missed out on?
The only thing I guess I could really say at this point, as an aftermath, as a post-mortem for the Acolyte, I think this show gave Lucasfilm and probably Disney too, the very harsh lesson that they have to really take stock in how they hire and who they hire for these projects. And I think that Leslie Headland clearly was not a good choice, even though she made the show that she wanted to make. I think when you're making a show or a project for a big brand like Star Wars, you cannot have that attitude. And I think that, that's unfortunately been a thing for Star Wars lately with a lot of the stuff we're seeing not work, for people making decisions that are much more better for them as opposed to better for the brand and better for the franchise and better for the universe. And I think also even Grace Randolph had said this, like, look, you have to stop alienating your core audience, which is clearly what the Acolyte did with, a lot of the thought process and the way that the interviews went. I even said, and I don't remember if I told you, but I told this to a couple other people, and I said it in my articles and also my Twitter posts. The interviews that some of these people were doing were not good. They did no favors to this show. The statements from Leslie Headland were terrible. Some things from Charlie Charlie Barnett, I think, was also thing. Same thing with Amanda Stenberg. That diss track, there was no reason for her to do that. That was a real stupid move, for her to do something like that because of the feedback and the backlash or the back and forth. You got to do what you need to do when it comes to dealing with social media. But keep in mind, you are part of this show. You have to deal with all the nonsense that, comes with it. I'm not saying it's right. It's not right. Like, some people go way overboard, but you can't go on interviews making statements, taking jabs at different parts of the audience or painting people with broad brushes and then expect them all to show up to watch your show, because clearly that's the result of what happened with this, that people were checked out or they just didn't even bother. So yeah. I think that's the best and biggest thing that maybe Lucasfilm should take out of this. And hopefully they do, but we won't know until the next couple of years, going into 2025, 2026, when eventually we get the Mandalorian and Grogu, which I think is the right move finally for them. Less stuff like this. And keep in mind too, and it's a shame to say, but I think also the Acolyte is going to be one of those things that prevents them from going back to the High Republic timeline in live action and probably even in animated form outside of the kiddie show that they're doing. It's just, can you blame them? It cost them nearly $200 million, $180 million for the entire season that got this result. Do you really think any company that's competent is going to want to go back to that again? So.
Yeah, and I mean, they're going to raise Disney Plus's cost again. I saw recently that they're going to raise it up again, like another $2 or $3. Where I'm just like, come on, man, you just raised.
I think they already did at this point.
Ago.
I don't think they're going to do it again. I know they recently did that. They recently raised it, and they changed up also the streaming policy for it, which is like the password sharing thing. A lot of the different streamers are catching on to that, which I think is a mistake because it's going to cause more problems than what they think. As far as like solving solutions,
their numbers are going to go even further down, man.
When you're releasing the Acolyte, or at least a quality of show like the Acolyte is now, you can't be talking big about raising prices. The only one I think right now that has a legit argument, and even then I think it's not good, is Max because of House of the Dragon, or Prime Video because of The Boys, and also Batman Cape Crusader, and they're about to get another big one with a Secret Level. I don't know if you saw the trailer for that, but at least those platforms over there have some legit arguments when it comes to raising prices.
Yeah.
So, they have to reassess is what they're going to need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my finishing thoughts too, is it's like pretty much what you said. I don't think Leslie Headland did any favors to this show. I mean, that would be like someone years down the line directing a Marvel movie and saying that, like, this is going to have battle sequences better than Endgame. You know what I mean? And it's like, all right, let's see what this is going to be here. Like, you didn't do any favors to your actors and actresses.
And walk that walk, literally.
Yeah. So it's, wasn't a fun time watching this show. I mean, obviously I watched it because I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm going to watch Star Wars shows and I want it to be great. And I don't want to criticize it. And hopefully down the line here, we're talking about how awesome Skeleton Crew is, or when Mando and Grogu comes out, we're fired up, and it's like, I want to go see it again in the theater, like that kind of stuff.
That's what we should be feeling with all Star Wars projects. Like, you remember the feeling you had after Ahsoka? You wanted to go back and watch episode 5 again because Hayden was there. Like, that's the emotion that we need for Star Wars fans right now with these projects, and they need to figure out how to recreate that or deliver that.
Yeah. For me, like, if I can think about that feeling, it was walking out of Rogue One with Vader going down that hallway, and then it ending with Princess Leia, and then going right to the end credits, and just hearing that music playing, and just walking out of the theater being like, damn, I need to see that again. Like
Exactly.
that's how it felt, and Disney released that movie. They were in the reins and they saw the success it had, and it seems to me they kind of just went away with it a little bit. So it seems like they're making changes. I mean, how many mistakes can you make until there's a change at Lucasfilm? And I mean, apparently Filoni gave a lot of green lights for this show as
No,
well.
something we should talk about this because I saw this going around for a long time now, and I don't believe it. You want me to tell you why? And I know we'll move on eventually, but like this is a very important thing. I don't know if Dave Filoni had a lot of involvement with this show because keep in mind he got into his new position late after the Acolyte was already greenlit. And I feel like he doesn't have full control or as much control as people believe when it comes to moving or green lighting or giving the okay on certain things. I think that a lot of this show, especially with some of the statements that Leslie Headland made, I feel like a lot of the stuff came from Kathleen Kennedy, or at least got the nod or the approval of Kathleen Kennedy. And, because she wanted the show to be what it was so much. Because again, Leslie Headland says this stuff. Go back and watch or listen to some of her interviews or read some of her interviews and saying like she made Kathleen Kennedy cry. Like that was a big bullet point for a lot of places that were putting out there saying that it was so good that she shed a tear and all this other stuff, or that you made a great Star Wars show. Now go make a great Leslie Headland show. Like those statements are out there. And if you go back and you look at shows like Mandalorian, if you go back and you look at shows like Ahsoka, you go back, you look at Clone Wars, Rebels, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, you look at the level of details and certain things when it comes to matching up with canon or nods and Easter eggs to audiences, that you can see a very big difference in how that stuff is handled over there compared to what we got in the Acolyte. And you could know that Dave Filoni had a bigger hand on a lot of those shows. He's open about it. You could see him on set doing things and talking about stuff and working with people and him talking about the shows intimately with all this stuff. So I don't believe that really is the case unless Homeboy comes out and says that he did all these things or he had such involvement in the show. I don't think it's the case. And keep in mind too, one writer for the Acolyte, or one of the people that was on the production team, came out and said a couple statements about who was involved in certain things. Remember, this all blew up on Twitter like about a month or so ago. And she made a statement about Dave Filoni being involved with it, and she ended up deleting it, which I think somebody told her to delete that after it got so big it blew up. And I think right after that, or sometime right after that, Leslie Headland came on and said that Pablo Hidalgo and Kathleen Kennedy and a few other people came and helped her out when she was asking about doing certain things on the show. And she eventually did mention Dave Filoni, but I really don't think Dave Filoni had a lot of involvement with this. And keep in mind too, some of these most recent reports were saying that Dave Filoni was the one that pulled the plug on the Acolyte, which I don't believe as well either. I don't know if he necessarily has the full reins to do something like that, but there seems to be a lot of misinformation or a lot of things that don't feel like they're matching up with that. So before anybody blames Dave for something, I think we need to take stock of like what's actually true and what's actually fair and what's actually valid for what was going on behind the scenes with this, which I doubt we're ever going to hear anytime soon.
Yeah. Maybe like 2 years from now we'll get like some really good like leaks about the inner processes.
Maybe even sooner than that.
Yeah.
But like some people saying that people are close to the production or telling these to people with sources and stuff. It's like it just doesn't make any sense because it's not matching up to what Dave has actually been involved with that we know, that we could see the product for what it is. Like I don't think Dave Filoni wanted Yoda at the end of the show. Like there was talk about there was pushback from Lucasfilm. I'm pretty sure Dave was one of those people. I'm also pretty sure that Darth Plagueis was another one because Dave Filoni just doesn't miss like deep cut Easter eggs like that, especially for such a big character as Darth Plagueis from Legends into canon. Are you kidding me? Like go listen to him talk about the Phantom Menace that we have those interviews. Like he's just not the guy to do something like that. So, and it doesn't make any sense. So like I said, I don't believe it until he comes out and says something. I feel like when he talks, it'll make much more sense.
I do feel like the Dave Filoni name drops by Leslie Headland started happening like deeper into as the show was happening. And to me, I was like, is this kind of like a shield thing, or did he really like actually have any involvement or whatever?
And I've never seen him talk about it. You notice that?
No,
like,
I've never seen him talk about it either.
I have to go and look for interviews where he's mentioned, like maybe he's mentioned it like, oh, go check out the Acolyte, like it's our newest Disney Plus show, but like really talk about it. Like I think I've only seen Leslie Headland go into interviews, Amanda Stenberg, maybe Charlie get into it, and then obviously Lee Jong Jae and Manny Jacinto. But I don't think that Dave has ever really sat down and talked about this show.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I think that it was like you said, it's probably already greenlit, and Dave wasn't going to come in and be like, "Yeah, I'm in charge now. This show isn't happening." You know what
No,
I
I don't even
mean?
think it's that. Like, I don't even think he had any really big creative input in it. Like, just with the way Leslie Henlon talks about it behind the scenes, or at least again confirmed in interviews that she's put out there and stuff. I don't really think he had any real big creative like input in it. And if he did, like I said, I'd be very amazed. That's good. But I want him to talk about it at some point. I want him to be like what it was, or at least somebody ask him. Somebody have the fortitude to ask these people, like, well, okay, what was your involvement with this? Like, did you give any green light for any of some of these scenes or some of these things that people point to? Like, I doubt we'll ever get that conversation anytime soon. Like I said.
Yeah, definitely. Now, D23, was there anything from D23 outside of Star Wars that you were following at all? Did you like kind of?
I watched all the big presentations. There was a lot of not a lot of Star Wars stuff, but there was a lot of Disney stuff. There's some pretty big Marvel things that happened. Obviously, what is it? Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Iron Man for one of the rides at Disneyland California Adventure for the Avengers campus. That's a big deal. And I think that's part of something else and part of a much bigger thing with Marvel Cinematic Universe, obviously with him being Doctor Doom and such. But I think that's part of something. Like, because that you just don't do that. Like, you just don't make it a point to show Bob Iger with Robert Downey Jr. doing things. Like, there's much more to that. There was obviously all the Disney movies and the Disney projects that are happening. I mean, Tron Ares, huge deal.
That
finally get to see that movie.
That's
Mufasa, The Lion King. It's another big deal. The confirmation of all the Pixar. The Pixar stuff is probably the biggest things. Mic drops and nukes that they dropped at D23. The Incredibles 3. You kidding me? Like, it's huge.
I didn't know about the Incredibles 3. I didn't even know there were any rumblings.
Frozen 3 and Frozen 4. Like, they said let it go, and they are clearly not letting it go. Like, it's happening again and again.
Yeah,
literally. I mean, and some of the other projects too. Was it? I forgot the name of the baseball one at the moment, but there's a baseball, Little League baseball game one that's like really cute, has a real kind of like anime influenced into it. That's pretty dope. Trying to think off the top of my head. There's the Cars Land that's coming. There's the other like rides of the Villains Land that's coming to Disney. What is it? Walt Disney World. Like, there was a lot of stuff, obviously, with the theme parks, the cruise ships. They're gonna have like 13 of them now. It's insane. Like, they were literally dropping big announcements at D23. For Star Wars, they had the stuff obviously with Skeleton Crew. They had the stuff obviously with the Mandalorian and Grogu. We got to see footage of it. We also got the confirmation that the Millennium Falcon ride, Smuggler's Run, is going to get Mando and Grogu stuff in it, brand new, for that ride, which is cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I'm really I love I want to get a D23 membership to maybe go to one of these things one day, because it's honestly not. I've seen the price of like the D23 membership. It's actually not that bad to be able.
Yeah, but it's probably because they're so coveted. You probably got to be a member for a while to get like some of that stuff, and then it adds up. I'm pretty sure, because they were not cheap with the presentation of some of these things. The people they had over there, like, this was like Comic-Con on like a good amount of caffeine.
Oh, they were in a stadium, dude. They were in a legit like they were in like
they were in Anaheim, right?
Arena. Yeah, they were in
Anaheim. Yeah, they were not playing. But I saw that whole presentation for the movies and for the theme parks. That was not cheap.
Yeah, and the theme parks, I'm excited about. I mean, the fact that in Disney World that they're going to take out the Rivers of America is pretty crazy to me for the Cars ride, because you have all that beautiful water there, and they're going to get rid of that for a Cars ride. That's kind of crazy.
But dude, look at what we're getting though. Besides some of the stuff they take, like Dinosaur Land USA is a big one that they're messing up. But look what they're changing it to. You're getting Encanto with the house. You're getting La Casita, which is a big deal for people that love that movie. You're getting Indiana Jones, like a brand new Indiana Jones ride. That's like all part of that land for Animal Kingdom. Like that, it sucks that we're gonna lose Dinosaur Countdown to Extinction and all that Dinosaur Land stuff. But if they're gonna update and actually capitalize on a lot of the franchises that they've been building a lot of the different IP they've had. Like this is the best idea that they have all the time. Like some people, I get it, the Disney purists that are like rubbed the wrong way with it. But watch when those rides are done. Like I think it's going to be a huge, huge deal. You get new restaurants, you get new rides, you get new
Yeah.
experiences. It's a huge, huge deal.
Which like Dino Land is cool, but it also like probably needed some TLC, like the
Yeah.
way Dino Land is. But I mean, Disney wanted to go for that kind of like how like the ground is all cracked and everything around there. They kind of wanted it to feel like kind of like a backlot fair style, like old school thing when they designed Dino Land. But I think it's
No,
going to
I don't
be
even think it's
awesome.
that. I think back then, like they really wanted it to feel like, that like 65 million years been around thing that felt old in that sense. But I think that it just Dinoland USA, even when I went to Disney World, Animal Kingdom was like not as like populated. It felt like it was just kind of there, even though it's still a Disney park, it's still amazing in what it is. But compared to the other parks and a lot of the other more recent stuff, I felt like it was time for the change for them,
Oh yeah,
probably.
Animal Kingdom definitely needs new stuff, and
Oh, dude, they're even getting rid of A Bug's Life.
I
That's
know
changing.
that's
That's
changing to
another one.
Zootopia, which I
Yeah.
love that
Well,
Bugs Life
Zootopia
one,
makes
but I
sense
get
though.
it.
Like, look where it's at.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that, and so it's funny because within the last year, I went to Disney World and rode the dinosaur ride there. That was the first time I ever rode that too. I've
Really?
been to
That
Animal
ride is
Kingdom
I
before,
remember when
and
that first opened up. It was called
yeah,
Countdown to Extinction.
yeah, and I loved that movie Dinosaur when it came out when I was younger, man. That was like next level CGI. And honestly, Dinosaur still is next level CGI because they have the dinosaur I can't remember his name, but they have him out front of
Oh
that
yeah, the
ride.
Mosasaurus or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And then they have the Carnotaurus as well,
Yeah.
the meat eater.
But I rode the Indiana Jones ride in Disneyland in June this year, which is a similar ride structure. You're in that Jeep. The Jeep is, really
Mhm.
shaking you around and everything. And that Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland always had a big line at it. And it was a fan favorite. So that's a line eater. People are going to be standing in line for that for a while. People are going to want to go on that Indiana Jones ride. And this one that they're building is going to be different than the one in
Yeah,
Disneyland.
totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different, which is awesome.
So it's pretty exciting. I mean, I had a great experience in Disneyland. It's cool, man. I mean,
I, I,
everyone
I
always,
like I like Disney. A lot of people talk down on it and they badmouth it for various different reasons. When you're
yeah,
there and you go and you experience like the better aspects of it, it really kind of blocks out the noise. It wipes away all that other nonsense because I went again, the time that I went was like fairly recent, like a year or so ago, and it was just that good. Like for all the crap that people talk about Galaxy's Edge, I loved Galaxy's Edge. It was a lot
hmm
of fun for me. It's not the best for certain aspects about it, but like when you're there and you're in the mix of it, I thought it was fun. And seeing the Disney parks finally getting changes and things that are changing up, for the better, updating rides. I hate to see the classics go, but like when you're starting to get better stuff that's more based on more recent things that people really care about, they're going to capitalize on it. It makes the most sense. The only thing I wish that we had in Disney World was the Avengers campus, because we don't
yeah,
have that down in Disney World. It's only in California, because there's huge Marvel fandom down here. I would love to go experience that one time, but seeing some of the stuff that they're getting for Avengers Campus is awesome.
yeah. It's pretty, dude. It's pretty cool. The only ride I did not get to go on was their updated version of Tower of Terror, where they changed Tower of Terror to Guardians of the
Guardians
Galaxy
of the
ride
Galaxy,
down
yeah.
there. But
We have the Guardians of the Galaxy one in Epcot down here in Orlando. That ride is fun. I got the
yeah, the
best version of
Galactic
it because
Rewind.
I did not expect what is it expected to have the music that it does. So it's like I was getting what is it, the Gloria Stefan song coming on the way. That's apparently the best one that you get, and it just caught me so off guard when I was there. I was like, wow, like this is amazing. Like it was so
Yeah,
much fun.
yeah. So the Avengers campus is cool there, but them now that I saw they're adding that Iron Man ride, and I didn't realize that there was an area where they planned to build stuff that they hadn't done yet. And when I'm seeing the plans, I'm like, okay, I remember seeing that area, like walking through that campus.
Mhm.
It's going to be pretty sick. So
Yeah.
if you ever want to go out to California and see that stuff, dude, you will not be
I'm
disappointed.
dying to one day. I need to
Yeah.
really do. I need to go visit Disneyland because I've yet to go to Disneyland in general. So one day I got to do it right
E-
because
Everyone told me when I was going out there, don't expect Disney World. It's not as big, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it was really cool because I stayed at the Disneyland Hotel. Downtown Disney is right outside your door there. So you
hmm,
walk out, you do your security and they still call it Downtown Disney there. You go do your security there. So then when you get to the parks, you don't even need to go through like bag checks or anything like that. You just scan in, you're in the park
oh,
and it's
yeah,
done. And
nice.
it's really cool. It's convenient because you stay at the hotel there, you walk right down and you're there. So
Hmm.
I had like a 10 out of 10 experience going there. And I mean, I'm like you. You're in that park atmosphere, whatever. It's like any of like the, any like I'm not thinking about the Acolyte when I'm in Disney
Yeah, I
World.
don't
I'm
care
thinking
about any of
about
that
how sick
nonsense.
this place is. Like it's
Yeah,
cool.
like it's just the way it is. That's how I felt with Disney World. Disney World was awesome with Jeremiah. And you know it because you've seen it, but everybody even now listening, they could go see the vlog that I did about my entire trip. That
It was a
shows
good one.
all that. It's a long vlog, but it's like got a lot of stuff to it.
Yeah, and you stayed at what was it?
The new Coronado
Yeah,
Springs, the Destino Tower. I was
yeah.
up there because we were pretty high up on there on like one of the higher floors. But the Coronado Springs is the Mexican like themed one or the Latin American themed one, and it's really based, centered around like the Three Caballeros, like as the Mayan temple and all that stuff. But even then, like when you stay on property and you go to the parks, you feel good. Like you
Yeah.
get treated very nice there.
You
So
are in the world, man. You just relax and
literally.
yeah,
When I
your
went
worries
to
kind of go
Magic
away.
Kingdom, it was dope. When I went to Galaxy's Edge and at Hollywood Studios, it was dope. Like and Epcot, let me tell you something. Because I was staying in the Mexican themed resort, I went to Epcot and I went to Mexico at the end of the day for dinner. We had tequila drinks. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was in the mood for the movie Coco, if you remember
Oh
Coco and
yeah.
the Three Caballeros rides that was there. Like it
Yeah.
was so good, so much
Yeah.
fun.
I had an empanada from Mexico the last time I was at Epcot and it hit the spot, man.
Dude, those drinks, they're great. You got to do Mexico last, though. People make the mistake. They go to Mexico first, thinking it's going to be awesome. It's like, no, you got to go make the trip, the lap.
Yeah.
You got to go to all those places. The only one I really didn't go to a lot, and I wish I did, was France, was Paris, because I
Yeah.
wanted to go to the ride there for the
Remy.
Ratatouille, but it kept breaking down. And I wanted to get either a drink or chocolate from Paris. Like, and I just didn't get it. I went to Germany. I had a buffet in Germany for
Yeah.
lunch. I went to Norway. I went to Italy. All those places, man. It was so good eating the food, the drinks. I went to Japan. I had a bento box in a freaking what is it? Koi fish river next to me with sake. I was living it. I was
Yeah.
in.
I always get the Sapporo in Japan
Oh
area,
man,
which I love. Sapporo is excellent.
dude,
I love having all those different drinks
yes,
around the
they're
world
so
there,
good.
man. And
The only other thing I messed up on my trip, I did not get a Mickey waffle, and I didn't get a character breakfast, and I was pretty pissed about that because I got almost everything else I wanted, and I got missed out one of the most important things.
you just got to go back, man. That's all. You
Damn right,
just
I
got
gotta
to
go back. I gotta get more.
that's the best part about Disney is every time you go there, you have a great time, but there's always one thing that you wish you did that makes you want to go
Gotta go
back
back.
there, man.
Gotta go redo it.
Exactly.
Run it
Now,
back.
now one thing I wanted to ask you about,
Mhm.
while we're kind of in this topic zone, it's something that we mentioned. There's a new Indiana Jones game coming out. Have you seen
Yes.
stuff on this? What do you think
Yeah,
about
okay,
this Indiana
so
Jones game?
they just number one, I'm excited about it because Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, it's called. It's literally done by Machine Games, who did the Wolfenstein games most recently.
Nice.
First person shooter, a lot of action, really immersive with their combat and stuff. Either the actual shootout or using the whip in this case as Indy. Awesome. Looks fantastic. Has a trailer out, his gameplay out, looks awesome. It's going to be on Game Pass first for a time, a day one, which is nice. So if you got Game Pass
Dude,
Ultimate,
that's a day one. That's a day
that's a
one Game
day one
Passer.
Game Pass Ultimate
Woo!
game. And
Okay, sweet.
which is great. But here's the other thing too. They just had their stuff at was it opening night live over in Germany, not for Gamescom. And not only did they show more gameplay and other stuff for it, and they did the release date, which I believe is December, if I'm not mistaken. But also they said that I think sometime afterwards it's going to come to PlayStation 5. So it's no longer an exclusive to Xbox platforms, which, A lot of people are upset about, understandably, because like that was like a Machine Games. That Microsoft has Machine Games under their banner, but the point is they got to release this game elsewhere so they can make even more money because
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on with Microsoft at the moment. They've been going through some things, with the whole FTC and the Activision buyout and all this other stuff, like closing studios, whatever. The point is, though, is like now at some point after some timed exclusivity for Game Pass, you'll be able to play that game on PlayStation 5 too.
Which good for PS5 owners who are Indiana Jones fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can wait. You can wait a little bit,
Yeah.
or just get Game Pass and play like that, or on PC because it's also going to be on PC, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that I've seen some of the footage, and I follow Alex Arnold. He runs an Instagram channel, Twitter. He's called the indie guy. He's just one of the most hardcore Indiana Jones fans I've ever seen.
He's gonna love this.
Yeah, he got to see some gameplay like the other day. Actually, I think he said I don't know if he got to play it for a little bit or if he saw some exclusive gameplay, but he was saying that it just looks freaking awesome. It looks smooth.
I wouldn't be surprised if he got to play it.
Exciting
because they showed, like I said, they showed gameplay and stuff at opening night live in Germany for Gamescom. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's like some playable version that people have checked out, like a demo, something like that. It just looks good. It looks really good. It looks fun. And again, if you know anything about Machine Games and the Wolfenstein games, like Wolfenstein New Blood or New Order stuff, this is going to be right up your alley. And it looks the part too, especially with the whip. Some of the stuff you could do with the whip and how it looks just from the first person view is awesome. And they also got sections where they kind of pull you out to third person. So you could still see it's indie. Like if you're climbing something or doing whatever, it still has that flair for like an action adventure game that's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah. And it's cool to think we're going to get a brand new Indiana Jones, story out of all of this. So it's pretty exciting.
By the way, shout out to Troy Baker sounding like Harrison Ford, because that's Troy Baker as Indy, and he sounds almost exactly like Harrison Ford, like to the T.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It's exciting. Now that I know that that's a Game Pass one as well, man, I'm fired up about that.
There's a couple things coming to Game Pass that are day one. Like next week is the Black Ops, Black Ops 6. Yeah, the new Black Ops game, the Call of Duty game coming out.
Yeah, it's sick.
The beta for it is on Game Pass.
Yeah, I'm ready for that. Because my son just recently accidentally deleted my Call of Duty off my Xbox, and I haven't re-downloaded it. But
if it comes out day one Game Pass for the beta, we gotta play together. And
I'm in on that.
And it's day one like Game Pass for the full game, which is even crazier.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Now, still on gaming news. Star Wars Outlaws
next week.
Dude,
there are people playing it right now, and I'm so pissed because some people got it early. They've been having it for about a week and change, like close to it or so, that are playing it for review. That I could see them on their Discord or their actual list, or like their names on like my friends list, and they're playing Star Wars Outlaws. I'm like, God damn it!
You deserve an early access to that game, man, because you've been on the news reporting of that.
I wish for freaking Ubisoft, man. Like you would think with all the Star Wars Outlaws stuff that I've been doing and the Star Wars content for games, but people are playing it right now. I've seen a lot of gameplay. I've seen a lot of the previews. I mean, let me ask you, like, do you think this game is getting a little bit unfairly treated or a little bit harshly treated by some people with the reactions online?
They released that 10 minutes of gameplay and everyone started killing it. Like everyone started crushing it for those 10 minutes of gameplay or whatever.
You're talking about the IGN first gameplay, which is the one that they had, the exclusive. But by the way, that gameplay that was there was based on a very old build of that game. Because what happens is with the IGN first, they usually have it like a month or so in advance where they can make that content to have the IGN first, the exclusive reveal or exclusive look for that game. The one that actual content creators and people played at that event that they all got flown out to, that everybody made a big deal about in California, that's a much more, more recent build. That's still not the final one. That looks much better than what the IGN first thing had. And then if you look at the newer gameplay that came out most recently within the last like few weeks, like that, so much better. Like a lot of these complaints and stuff that I've been seeing from people are so off base, or they're like looking for problems or looking for stuff that are just overreacting to some of this. Because from looking at the different events during the conferences for like Summer Games Fest, looking at some of the previews for some of these content creators, they got their own footage. That's their footage. It's not from any specific thing. They actually captured their own 1080p footage, or the guys that actually got to preview it more remotely on PC, which is what I did for Prince of Persia. They got to do that recently and they got to play. And a lot of them said it's pretty good. Like a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff that some people are saying are just, they either don't know any better or they're just looking at that very old build gameplay, which is wild to me.
Yeah, I'm personally excited for that game. I think it looks like a lot of fun. Alfie actually just sent me a clip of some of the season pass stuff they
Yeah.
have for it, where you're gonna have one mission if you get the season pass that has to do with Lando and everything.
Yeah.
And
It's the same thing with the Jabba stuff. Like part of the season pass that they're going to release over a set period of time. I think they put it on Twitter or anywhere else where it's like over a period of like a couple months that are different exclusive missions for certain characters. But Lando, Jabba, and all those people are still in the main game. You still get to do missions with them. It's just those specific missions and scenarios are exclusive that are different than what you get in the main game with them. So like you have like probably a bunch of missions with Jabba because he's one of the factions. They're there, and you probably get a bunch of missions as one of the experts that you have to go to as Lando or for Lando to learn some stuff. Because there's even trophies. Did you see the trophy and achievement list came out for this game? That's even stuff that you do with Lando. That's outside of Sabak.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome. I mean, I think it looks like it's going to be a really. I think it looks like it's going to be solid. I saw people are getting pissed about like the knockout move on the stormtrooper from behind, but I'm just like
stealth.
I'm just like, that's just a regular stealth move in any stealth game. Like it's just the backside takeout of someone where you just knock them out.
You know
quick.
something?
Like,
I think that people are making stuff like that a little bit too much of a big deal because, we've seen a lot of the gameplay that has the stealth in it that looks a little bit harsh, a little bit rough, and I get it. There's definitely things to criticize there. And I can't talk about it, but I've seen some things pop up from people that are playing the game now because I'm not under embargo, but like to at least respect what they said. Like they have thoughts about the stealth sections and some of which you could go find publicly that people have said and such. I think that stuff is fine. But what I feel like is people are making mountains out of molehills with this game in some cases, because look at the overall package that this game is going to be. It's going to be the first open world Star Wars game that's going to allow us to go from ground to space and space to ground seamlessly, quote unquote, with the way that they're handling it. It's a new type of story set in a time period that we love, which is the original trilogy between Empire and Jedi, like that. There's a lot of good going into this game. And I think that people are being a little bit too quick to judge it in a very harsh way, because it's one thing to criticize, it's another thing to write off so easily. And I feel like a lot of people are so quick to write this off over nothing. And I'm not a fan. I think we talked about this in one of the previous episodes where I'm not a fan of the criticism. People are saying that there should have been a customizable character. Yeah, I think that's such a lame criticism, because I get people want a custom game to make their own character and stuff, but nobody had that same thing when people were talking about Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor. So it's kind of a mute point to me. We're just getting a different story with a different character and a different time period.
Yeah, which I mean, we got a story with Iden Versio and Battlefront 2 that was pretty cool too. So,
but granted, that game you could play as a nameless or customizable character with the multiplayer and other stuff. But I get the thing that people really want and stuff. I just think it's a lame criticism of the game, because it's not really being fair to the content of the game itself. It's not like they're playing the game and being like, oh, I wish that this was my own original character playing this. It's such a lame thing to point out, because that's not what this game was designed to be.
Yeah, with some of the criticism I saw about maybe, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I felt like it kind of like lit on fire, where people were just like trashing on it. And I'm just like, this game isn't even out yet. Like,
yeah, but they're also looking at that old IGN first video. That's what that old build was. And it's nowhere near the same type of like gameplay or the same type of like presentation compared to what you got in the later gameplay that was coming out from people that actually got to play the game. It's not like, it was PR that was holding on to it and like, showing us the game like that with the hands-off demo. Like, no, these are people that actually got to play this game and capture their own footage. And it just looks much better than what it was originally.
Yeah, and you can just hop on a speeder and buzz out into the desert and then go run and do a mission, and then you can go hop in your ship, and it looks really exciting. I mean, I think
there are definitely going to be things to criticize about it. Like we have to be fair and say that like this isn't going to be a perfect game. I'm pretty sure, like most Ubisoft games are. There's always things to criticize about it. This is the same team making this game that did The Division. They obviously The Division and Division 2 had its own issues. But at least from what I'm seeing, being a Star Wars fan and a gaming fan that's pretty critical about the games he plays, I think there's a lot of good stuff to look forward to with this. I don't think that people should be writing it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be watching your review on that because I know that you'll probably yeah, I know that you'll shoot it straight and just tell it how it is, whether it's good or bad or not.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
next week,
yeah, that's crazy. So releases next week. It's 1 week
August
away.
30th. August 30th. I know that early access for gold and I think the higher tier package of that game, which is like the really expensive one. No, I don't think anybody should be buying the expensive one unless you really want that season pass and other stuff. Like that's a little overkill. But I think those versions of the games get like 3 days early access over the standard. But if you're on Game Pass and you actually pay, I think it's the $10 for the Ubisoft Plus stuff, you could get it that same time, 3 days early through Game Pass.
No, that's nice. Now, I also saw that the name of the game is escaping me, but I watched your footage of the battle style Star Wars game.
Star Wars Hunters.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Hunters? Because that game was delayed forever, and then
Star Wars Hunters, for anybody that doesn't know, is the hero shooter that's similar to Overwatch, but set in the Star Wars universe, has its bunch of original characters. I don't like this game. I think it feels bad. I think it looks like trash in comparison to a lot of other games that are of that same genre. Especially with Marvel Rivals out. Marvel Rivals killed this game over here. If you never got a chance to see my video on Marvel Rivals, it's much more of a better feeling game. It does things a whole lot better, looks better in general. Star Wars Hunters not only has a bunch of original characters that I don't think people really care about, they're getting other characters. I think they introduced like an assassin droid, I think it was at one point, or it's assassin droid that looks similar to the assassin droid from Star Wars Outlaws? Oh no, I'm sorry, the K2SO. It's the K2 droid. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Again, because they look very similar in some ways. But the K2 droid that's got added as another character. And everything else is just original characters. I just don't think it's a fun game to play. Like I was done with it after the video that I made about it. And it kind of sucks to say that because this is a game that's been delayed for a long time. Originally felt like it was developed for mobile and then brought over to the Switch, and you could totally feel it when you're playing it. It just doesn't seem like there's any reason to be really competitive with it when you have other games of the same genre that are doing it better. You still have Overwatch 2 that's still around. You still have Apex Legends that's still around. You're getting Marvel Rivals, which is like later this year, right around the corner, which by the way, you don't have to go through a season pass thing, to play it. All the characters are going to be unlocked from the get-go, to go to play it.
Which is awesome.
It makes this game obsolete. So Star Wars Hunters, I would say it's free to play on Switch. You could try it out yourself, but I don't think it's really worth it.
Is that another money L for Star Wars now on top of the hotel and the Acolyte and everything?
I guess, but I can't even blame it on them. They probably just licensed it out to the company that made that game, which I believe was Zynga, which is the one that developed Star Wars Hunters. Zynga has its own problems and its own stuff, but this game just kept getting delayed until finally they released it. And I said for the longest time, like this game didn't look that good. I kept saying that for months.
I think we talked about Star Wars Hunters like probably 3 previous appearances for you on this podcast. Like we talked about it a long time ago.
Yeah, I mentioned it that it just did not look good.
Yeah. So it's it's okay. Whatever. Another L, just pile it into the Star Wars stuff.
I'll tell you what's not an L though. A nice big W was Jedi Survivor still. And the fact that, we're going to be getting an XCOM style RTS game or strategy game for Star Wars fairly soon, whenever that finishes its development and stuff.
Dude.
That's in the works. And we're getting Jedi 3, the third game for Cal Kestis.
I did not know that there's an XCOM style Star Wars
game. Dude. That's been in development for a while. I've written about that, even a year ago. When the different types of LinkedIn listings were going out, originally I thought it was going to be like Empire at War. I thought that was going to be a thing, but no, it's going to be more kind of like XCOM in the way that its gameplay style is, but it's going to be strategy game for Star Wars.
Turn-based, environment strategy.
Think XCOM, think Midnight Suns, for Marvel, but not with the card stuff, but like more XCOM 2.
Gears of War tactics.
Yeah, more tactics and strategy. Which sounds cool because I don't think we have a lot of that in Star Wars. We have real-time strategy, but not along the lines of this. So this should be fun to see. And again, There's more Star Wars games coming, which are going to be good.
That XCOM style gameplay makes so much sense for Star Wars that
Mm-hmm.
that fires me up to see if they're doing something like that, because man, I would get on XCOM sometimes, and that's one game that I would get lost on for hours, where I'm
Mm.
just like, if I'm playing like campaign and I run into a level where I can't figure it out, and then you're trying different strategies each time, like, let me lead this guy up. Plus, you upgrade your characters and everything. If they can take that format and put it into Star Wars, man, that would be
Yeah, it
sick.
makes the most sense. Like it sounds like it'd be really interesting. And like I said, we got other games coming. Again, Jedi 3 for Cal Kestis. I'm pretty sure eventually we're going to hear something about Knights of the Old Republic remake, because I'd obviously think with some of the reports that game isn't dead. They're clearly still working on it. There's clearly a thing with Embracer and Saber Interactive, whatever they're doing with it. We are eventually going to see that game at some point. It's just going to take a while. It's not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, so that's exciting. I mean,
and Star Wars Eclipse. That was the other one. That one's still down the line, but that's still being worked on by Quantic
so it's
Dream.
Star Wars Eclipse is definitely happening, right?
Yes, no,
yeah.
that is a legit thing, because I remember reporting on and writing about when they did that interview with Quantic Dream, because they finally got back started, kickstarting the development of it, because they had a lot of problems trying to hire talent for a long time, for a
Talk
while.
about a
because of all the
trailer
stuff.
that fired me up.
Yeah, people
original
love the trailer, but that trailer
theatrical
was really released because they wanted to attract talent to the studio, because they were going through their whole controversy back then or whatnot. But eventually, sometime last year, they started kicking back up was development for it, that they were actually making the game. They were doing mocap and the whole nine. So that's going to take a while, but I know when they're done, that game's going to be good.
It's good stuff. Yeah, my son right now, he's playing. He's been playing the story mode on Battlefront 2. So he's like, it's funny to see how locked into it he is. He's just like, he's like, why? It's funny because I'm pretty sure I didn't see it, but I think he played that second story mode that they released.
Oh, the epilogue or whatever.
Yeah, I think he played that one first, because then he was playing as Luke Skywalker, and he was like, why is so and so working with Luke Skywalker right now?
Oh no, that's still the main game. No, that's still the main game, because what I'm talking about is like the time jump that takes place after the main story. There's like a time jump that happens after Iden Versio gets older.
So that is the main one, where you have
when Luke shows up in that, when he's working with that other Imperial officer, that's the main game. There's a whole level devoted to that.
So is that Imperial officer though in the second phase of it, because he was so I think he played the second phase and then was confused when he went back to the first one and was like, this guy is a bad guy. Why is he working with Luke Skywalker right now?
Or because of the whole scenario that happens. Like they both he gets stranded on the planet or whatnot. He's like trying to, I think it's like an Imperial, what is it, vault that has all these like Jedi or Jedi temple like objects. And Luke is going there because he wants to go get something, which I think is one of the compass things that we see in one of the other movies. And that he helps him out because there's this whole like horde of like, I think it's like spider enemies or something like that, that he helps him out through that whole section right before he leaves. That's like the best level in that whole campaign.
Me and him have been playing PS2 Battlefront as well with each other.
Oh, there you go.
We've been doing a little split screen story mode with.
Are you playing the classic collection?
No, I never downloaded it because I got scared off. I got scared off by some of the reviews, honestly, with the crashing.
It's patched now. It's better now, I will say. It's good if you want to get trophies and stuff, because I have the platinum on it. Like, it took me a while, but I got the platinum trophy for doing everything with it. But that was a rough launch. That was a very, very rough launch. But for whatever reason, they eventually got things back on track.
Yeah, I feel like Aspire gets like attacked a lot, but they're the ones who are out there renewing these games, so I give them credit for that.
Yeah, they just did Bounty Hunter. I did Bounty Hunter. I got to review that not that long ago, and it was Bounty Hunter is pretty good. Like, the changes they did to it, great. Changes up the feeling of that game, makes it so much better in general.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Bounty Hunter is a game I never played, so I've been seeing that on my. I've been seeing it on my Xbox store and considering buying it because I see that
get it and play it. It's good. If you've never played it before, play the new version, the remastered. So much better than the original. Because as someone who's played that game like now multiple times from all the different versions, because there was a version prior to this new one that was on PlayStation 4 that actually got released, and you could play it on PS5 and stuff. But the newer changes they did with the controls, the visual upgrade, and a lot of other stuff, so much better than the original.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a purchase because what is it? What is it, like $15 or something
Like
on the
19. I think it last
19?
I saw it on PSN. But again, I got it through a code from Aspire themselves, but I think I saw it for about 19, give or
Yeah,
take.
which is awesome. So how is your, because you've been collecting a lot of the Star Wars
Mhm.
games, which I think you've collected every single PS2 Star Wars game that
Yes.
exists, right?
Yeah, I have a complete PlayStation 1 collection of Star Wars games. I have a complete PlayStation 2 collection of Star Wars games. I am on the cusp like this of getting a complete PlayStation Portable collection of Star Wars games. I'm
Ooh.
missing one game, which it's a matter of just finding the right price for it on eBay or anywhere else that actually has a complete and not looking like garbage, not looking like somebody ran over it with a car and stuff. And has the complete stuff. And then I have a pretty almost complete Xbox original game collection of Star Wars games. And then I have multiple. Right now, I think I have a complete on PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5, obviously, because we haven't gotten Outlaws yet. And I'm still missing a couple on GameCube, but the GameCube, I have most of the big ones that you would have because at some point, collecting Star Wars games and games in general gets redundant between the different platforms because I have like 3 or 4 copies of The Force Unleashed at this point, not counting
Yeah.
digital. Like, I have it literally for PlayStation 3, Wii, PSP, PlayStation 2, digitally on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Like, at some point, it gets ridiculous. Like Jedi Outcast is another one. I have Jedi Outcast both on Switch digitally and I have it on Xbox, and I don't have the GameCube version, which is probably the only real Star Wars game besides what is it, Rogue Squadron that was really on there, and Bounty Hunter, in the
Yeah.
Lego games. But and Clone Wars. Clone Wars I have like 2 copies of the original Clone Wars games. I have it originally on PlayStation 2 and Xbox.
Yeah, that's what I just recently refired up my Wii, and I was wondering if there was any Star Wars games that I should get for
There's
the
not a lot. I could tell you from someone that had to do a tier list on every single Star Wars game ever released, they are not that great on Wii because you have The Force Unleashed, which is like the worst version, technically, in my opinion, of it. You have The Force Unleashed 2, which speaks for itself. You have Lego Star Wars on there. And then you have the Star Wars Clone Wars animated games, which is the Star Wars Jedi, I think, lightsaber duel, and then also Republic Heroes, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I didn't remember if there was any like significant Wii games that came out. That's what it's like for GameCube. I want to get. I don't have either of the Rogue Squadron.
Oh, those
Or
are
was there only one Rogue Squadron game
no,
for
there's 2.
GameCube? There was
There's
2,
2.
right?
So
Okay.
technically, I have 3 because one of the purchases I was lucky to get, was the preview disc of Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike that I got. So I have Rogue Leader, Rebel Strike, and then the preview disc that was all on GameCube. Now, there's other Star Wars games on GameCube as well because there's Jedi Outcast, there's the Clone Wars, and then there's the Bounty Hunter on there. And then the Legos. You gotta understand, I don't really count the Lego Star Wars games as Star Wars games, even though they are Star Wars in the title. They're not true Star Wars games that's not connected to another license. So like Jedi Outcast would be a true Star Wars game, or Clone Wars would be a true Star Wars game, etc. But if besides being a completionist to get all those games and stuff, outside of just including the Lego games, those are the only few on GameCube, besides the Rogue Squadron games, which I think are the biggest ones that are the most important.
Why have we not gotten a new Rogue Squadron game for Switch, man?
Good question, because I've been saying this for years.
Easy.
Like literally, I wrote a whole editorial about this and videos about this. But does Aspire listen to me? No. Like, it's what's funny is because we got Squadrons on PlayStation 4 and Xbox, obviously.
I didn't like that much, and I'm
That's
a
more
chip
based
guy.
on X-wing and TIE Fighter. That's not really Rogue Squadron. Like imagine if they did a new Rogue Squadron that felt like Ace Combat. Ace Combat is like pretty much what Rogue Squadron is. For the most part, or Star Fox, same exact idea. Like
the first person view, like it just didn't work for me in those games. And I'm the kind of guy who, when I was playing Battlefront 2, I was like yearning for space combat because like I'm pretty good. Like when it comes to flying Star Wars ships in games, whether it's modern Battlefront 2 or old Battlefront 2, I always just feel like I have a feel for that, and I love doing it. And I like the third person view on it. And I always just felt like in Squadrons, I tried that game and I'm just like, I feel way too boxed in. I feel like I can't feel the motion of the ship and everything.
Yeah, because you like Rogue Squadron gameplay more than X-Wing gameplay or TIE Fighter gameplay. That whole thing, Squadrons, is based on those PC flight games. That's exactly how they are. They've always been like that. And I get there's an appeal for it, and that's why that whole game is built off it. They dropped the ball with it because they could have kept it going by adding more ships and other scenarios, and they just completely abandoned it, which is what they did the same thing with Battlefront 2, EA at the same time. But I felt like if they ever somehow made a Rogue Squadron-esque game for Star Wars, it would do so much better than Squadrons because it feels, again, like Star Fox or Race Combat. It just is a much more arcadey, much more simplified version, an approach to space combat with Star Wars, and it worked. Rogue Squadron, the original on N64, still holds up today. Because I played that game fairly recently again. Like I played both versions. I did the regular on N64 and I played the 3D version on PC. The PC version just has a lot of bugs and glitches that just wasn't optimized. It just doesn't feel right compared to the one on N64. But that N64 version still holds up real good. Still so much fun to play.
It's insane. That game is incredible. So now I might fire up a game when we're done this podcast tonight.
It's so much better. Yeah, like going back to the original point, I've been collecting Star Wars games. I have some interesting ones that I know a lot of our colleagues, that are in the Star Wars community. Not everybody has them, but I have them complete. Like I have the alternate version. Like I think you'll get a kick out of this. Let me show you because I don't think I've ever shown you this because we talked about it. Let's see if I can pull it out. Here we go.
I'm ready for it. For anyone not watching YouTube, JJ is grabbing a game right now. There you go.
But look at
the Power Battles. That's a different cover than I have.
No, well, here's the thing. I'm going to show you what makes this special. Okay. So I can pull it out gently. There we go. See? This is a case that was a special case that was given for Jedi Power Battles. Hopefully you can hear me. They have a special case for Jedi Power Battles that was a little bit different in certain stores that was limited. That was this. It's basically just a paper cover, but it has the gloss and glow and like shine to it. And then it goes over the original manual, which is the original version. So when you look at it, when I put it back.
Which, dude, I know you don't like that game, but how sick is the cover art, though?
No, the cover's awesome. Like, the cover's dope. And by the way, the PlayStation version is the only one that has this here in the States. It's not on the Dreamcast and or whatever other version. But
yeah,
that's how it looks.
I have mine sitting right over there, but that cover is freaking sick, man.
Yeah, you can see it's gold, like with the lettering and stuff. Like the case saw a little bit of wear, but when I got this is one of the only few copies I saw that was complete with this thing in there. And this is not common with it. Like there's other games that I have like that. Like if I think I've talked with you about it, or I talked about it with someone. I have Star Wars Episode 2. What is it? I think it's I either both Attack of the Clones and what's it? What is it? New Droid Army. If you remember New Droid Army on Game Boy Advance, my version has the special Darth Vader card that comes with it. Like that's not common amongst the other versions of the game because they stopped printing it. It was part of the Star Wars trading card game, but the box and the contents of it are exclusive to that version of it. And I have that. I have it complete, in a good condition. But I've collected versions of the games like that I know are very important, like including having the LucasArts, registration cards, the manuals, the promotional material. And that's a very important thing when collecting stuff because we don't really see that as often because of time that people throw them out and stuff. But when you could get it like that or get it like this with the cover, it's so much more better and so much more different.
This is why physical media should never die, in my opinion, because when you can pick that thing up and hold it and look at it and read through that manual and everything, it adds another layer of making it special. Like I just don't. That's why I hate to hear that like movies they're going to stop selling like DVDs and movies and like I'm sure one day we might see games stop selling as physical.
It'll never happen. I don't think it's going to happen with those other media too. I really don't think so because people love their physical objects. There'll always be options to do that.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't want that to happen. I recently got a VCR player and threw in my original trilogy Star Wars VHSs, and it was like a blast from the past to see those movies before they were changed with the with all the CGI added in.
You gotta protect that. You gotta store that in a nice spot that could be preserved.
It's sitting right across from my computer here next to Poe Dameron's X-Wing right now. So that's where it is. Hopefully hopefully that's protected enough. But
Mhm.
yeah, I got nervous because I wanted to watch Empire Strikes. First thing I wanted to do when I got this VHS player, I'm like, I got to put Empire in. And I had to rewind the tape. And I started getting nervous while the tape was rewinding because you remember VHS back in the day. I don't know, like every now and then you could have a VHS get screwed up when you're
Yeah.
rewinding it.
And the
And
VHS, because the whole thing will just get pulled out.
yeah, yeah, and the VHS player I got was just like abandoned at a house that I was working at, where they're just like, yeah, you can take that thing, whatever. I'm like, awesome. Threw it in there and started rewinding, and I was like nervous as hell, but it was awesome to see it. So
Nice.
that's and see, these are the things that make us love Star Wars. Going full circle back to how this podcast started, talking about the Acolyte and everything that it did and everything. It's like the show had the cast and potential to put out a great show.
Mhm.
It did not. And there's things about Star Wars that we still love, and it's why we watch this stuff, and it's why we have opinions on it. It's why you're allowed to have your opinion on it, regardless of however many freaking quote tweets or comments people are throwing at you.
Yeah,
It's
like,
like,
I think it's more that people nowadays, especially on social media, they don't know how to disagree. I've said this to people before, like, everybody wants, or at least a bunch of people want everybody to agree with them, and they want to find their clique and they want to find their crew, their whole like council of people, whatever. But they don't know how to disagree. They don't know how to debate. They don't know how to exchange ideas. And it's like, how am I, me, like I said, when we talked about it earlier, me putting my take out about the Acolyte prior to the cancellation, not only was my take validated by the announcement that the show got canceled, but also all the time, all these people that even happened after the announcement of the cancellation, people were trying to question my fandom. People were trying to say all these crazy things about me, that I'm a fake fan, that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm a grifter, that I'm farming for views or farming for engagement. Imagine this stuff like being said about me. No, you knowing me know full well how much stuff I've done about Star Wars in general, or just talking about Star Wars as a critic, as a media person. But this is the type of rhetoric and the type of attitude you see from a lot of people online sometimes, especially for things like this when it's tied to a hashtag. And it's like, really, when it comes to really spotting and getting rid of negativity within any sort of fandom, specifically in the Star Wars fandom, it really comes from recognizing stuff like that and not engaging with it and not
yeah,
actually being the cause of it. Because one thing I can say, and for some people they might agree or disagree with this, all those people that were throwing that stuff at me, I never responded once to them. There was only one person I responded to, and it was really early on, prior to all that stuff happening, prior to the quote tweets from other content creators in the Star Wars community basically taking a dump on my opinion for no reason, attacking me or saying things about me. I never responded to any of those people because, one, it doesn't help me. Number two, it doesn't help anybody else, let alone the Star Wars community. And number three, more than anything else, I was right. I was fair in my opinion and fair in my stance. And it just, the Lucasfilm proved it for me. Like, they clearly, I didn't even need to say anything after that.
yeah.
Like,
It was quick validation actually to what you said.
and
That was a
the biggest
day or
part of
two
that
after.
too, Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt. Like, the biggest part of that too was that I put a tweet afterwards with the announcement when it finally came out that the show was canceled. I said, so are any of these other people going to be big enough to apologize to me? And the first response that came out to that was, no, you don't deserve an apology. It's like, wow, okay. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't even respond to that. I just like let it lie. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of true, because none of these people are big enough or mature enough to actually be like, you know what? Maybe I was a little bit too harsh on that. Or maybe
yep,
I just, was a little bit too quick to jump at someone for something. And again, like I said, if it was coming from a person, that was being vindictive or nasty towards people from the very get-go, or if I was being like a jerk with my opinion about it, that'd be one thing. But I clearly wasn't. And I
yeah.
clearly wasn't being hostile to any of these people. And I think that they just can't take that, they just can't accept they're in denial about the reality of the situation. It's just like, well, I tried to tell y'all, I tried to be honest, but y'all wanted to be like that. So look what happened.
And that there is just like a quick summary of just like Star Wars and the dark side that can happen on the internet sometimes. And I like to feel like Rule the Galaxy here, we get so many people on our podcast with differing opinions, and we always have a good time with everyone. And that's the light side of the internet. So
Just being
there's
respectful, like, it's
absolutely.
being chill. And again, people could disagree on shows and stuff. I'm pretty sure me and you disagree on like a bunch of stuff. I'm pretty sure. Like, I know a lot of people disagree with me and my stance on Andor, even though I didn't say Andor was a bad show. I just say it's a bad Star Wars show compared to being like a badly made and developed show.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a pretty nuanced and reasonable take from someone, which, funny enough, I was watching either Grace Randolph or Christian Harloff that was saying the exact same thing as me, that other people that they know personally feel that same way. It's like,
Oh yeah,
now I
Alfie
know
on
I'm
our
not
show
alone out
feels
here.
that way.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And yeah, I know multiple people who feel that way about Andor, and then also a lot of people who think it's the best Star Wars show that's been made. So it's
Yeah.
and I come in somewhere in the middle with all of that. Like, there's a lot of Andor that I really like because I'm such a Rogue One fan, and then there's
Mhm.
also times where I want the plot line to start moving faster, which I think season 2. I really think the second season of this is going to be a lot more fast paced than the first. I
And I
have
hope it's
no way
good.
of predicting any Star Wars show anymore.
Mhm.
I will say that because I
I
was
really
jacked
hope it's
for
good.
Obi-Wan. I was jacked for a lot of the Star Wars stuff that sometimes has been a little bit of a letdown, which sucks, but it is what it
Yeah.
is. There's also, but we stay in the game for the times when it's
At
great.
least we're watching, we're there seeing it and talking about it,
Yeah.
which apparently can't be the same thing said for a lot of people with the Acolyte. Clearly, the numbers showed it. At least I showed up to a movie theater to start watching this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
What's the
but no, I'm a
saying?
fake fan. I'm a fake
Men
fan,
lie,
for going to theater.
men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. That's
Numbers don't
a
lie.
yeah, numbers don't lie. So there you go. Well, we're at an hour 50 into this thing, and I could talk to you all night about all this stuff, but I
Mhm.
feel like we should kind of throw a bow on this episode tonight. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap up here?
I know I didn't you mention you also wanted to talk a little bit about Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, at one
Oh
point?
yeah. How was your theater experience for that?
Oh, I had 2, which was great. My first theater, because I like going to movies that opening day, that sometimes, with a lot of the big, like, groups of fans and people that go to watch these movies, especially when it comes to a Marvel movie.
Oh
Like, I
yeah.
like to go to IMAX or Dolby Digital. I went to IMAX for my screening, or at least when I bought the ticket and stuff. It was the first one ever. But I don't, can I show you? I think I can show you. Hold on. Like, watch this. I got it. I got the thing.
Is it the bucket? Is it the popcorn bucket?
Number one, I got the
Let's
thing.
go.
the popcorn. I was one of the last few people to get this because they sold out
Dude, that
immediately.
probably sold out.
Like,
so
literally,
quick.
like, so fast. But then, as if that wasn't crazy enough, okay, I got the exclusive goblet, the mug,
Dude, that is sick.
that has both Deadpool and Wolverine on it, that they only sold at AMC, which is cool. So having both things, I was literally looking like a jackass, like walking around with this thing with the giant mug, this, and then my buddy at the movie theater I go to, he does some stuff at the bar. He had an extra Wonka hat for from the Wonka movie, stuff that nobody bought, the actual popcorn tin. He gave it to me. He was like, "Yeah, I just need to get rid of this. You want it?" I'm like, "Sure." I was wearing that hat, walking around the theater, going to watch this movie like a total fool, but I didn't care because I was there, like, having a ball. I had both drinks from Deadpool and Wolverine. They have the themed drinks at AMC and the MacGuffin's bar. I had both of them, like a fool, drinking out of this damn cup like an idiot.
Dude,
But
that cup is sick.
yeah. But so the movie itself, I had a great time. I had a great crowd. It was exciting. Obviously, the movie has a couple of flaws here and there, but it's like really about the experience and just enjoying it, connecting, getting more hyped and excited again about an MCU movie. I thought that was really fun. And this was Deadpool, so it was wild. The jokes were over the top. Some of the things they were saying that they got away with, that they got the green light for, were so great. Like, some of the biggest pops in this movie. Like, can I spoil?
Oh yeah, we've talked spoilers on it. The last time I was on, we talked spoilers.
If you didn't see the movie yet, that's your problem. Whereas I'm spoiling. Okay, I mean, I don't mean you, but I mean, like,
oh yeah,
like, it's your fault you didn't watch this movie. Stop living underneath a rock, right?
Yeah.
So, the biggest pops for me in the theater, not just for me, but from everybody around me, when Chris Evans showed up as the Human Torch. That was great. Like, we knew it was coming.
When he
but,
said
like,
flame on,
the way they handled it and the build up to it and the selling that Ryan Ryan Reynolds does as Deadpool for it is so great. And then the joke that they kind of walk back to at the end after the credits, hilarious.
Oh yeah,
So damn funny. The pop off when you first see Elektra, when you see Blade, when you see Gambit for Channing Tatum, like number one, Elektra and especially Blade showing up. Everybody that was our generation felt that in our souls.
dude.
Watching
Blade was the one that brought
the
my
biggest
theater
pop,
down.
the biggest pop in my theater. Like, I mean, Gambit too, but like with Blade, it was like because people remember going to watch Blade. That's technically the first Marvel movie for a lot of people, you know, as far as modern Marvel movies and films and stuff.
Yeah.
And like you could credit Spider-Man a lot of things, you could credit Iron Man for a lot of things, but really Blade was really the first like foundational thing there. And that comes from our generation specifically that was old enough to go to see that in the theater. And you know, everybody in the theater was losing their damn minds. You know, seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit, he looked good. You know, ridiculous. He sounded ridiculous, but it doesn't matter. It's Gambit. He's in this, and he was there. Seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine put on the helmet or the cowl for the first time was a trip. Everything about it was so much fun. Like it was a fun, really awesome movie with a lot of great moments that you could point to and be like, that's what I want to feel when I go to a Marvel movie. Like, this is a complete opposite of the Marvels. This is a complete opposite of the Eternals. This is a complete opposite of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Like, this is what we like to see. Like, it might be slop for some people as far as, you know, the story not being as strong as what it should or probably should be in some cases. But like this, I feel like this was the movie we needed at this moment before we get to some of the bigger things, like obviously Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, and other stuff like the Fantastic Four. I feel like for now, Deadpool and Wolverine was the movie we needed, and it worked out for the best. It was awesome. As you could tell, I got all those merch and other things.
Yeah, it was a perfect opportunity to shut your brain off in the theater and have fun with a lot of stuff that you know about in this universe. And and you already know the character that Ryan Reynolds has created and the developers of these movies with Deadpool. And they had a fun way of intertwining him coming to the MCU with Disney and everything, and him being allowed to play with a lot of these properties for the first time.
I just poke fun at it. You know, I got to give credit to Kevin Feige and to Disney to an extent, being a good sport about kind of like, you know, degrading themselves a little bit, just having a little depreciating humor about them, that they allowed Ryan Reynolds to go as far as he did. Like even the limitation where he said like no drug use and stuff, they made a joke out of it that was hilarious. That just was a running thing, was like, oh, we can't say this, we can't do cocaine, and there's all this other stuff. Like it was funny and was great. Like even the stuff, one of the funniest pops for a joke was with Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, when Deadpool mentions Daredevil and she goes, it's fine. The whole theater just broke out laughing, because if you know, you know, but it was just the timing of it. It was like, oh wow, we're going there. Like, or one of the good ones, because Wesley Snipes, you got to give him credit. He got some moments in this movie. He got his moments with the same thing with Channing Tatum, but like when he comes out, he goes, "There's only one blade, and there's only ever going to be one blade." I was like, damn. And then Deadpool's reaction.
He looks right into the audience. He's just
he's like, ooh, like that was funny. That was hilarious. And it was shocking. Yeah. But it was like, okay, like you could see Deadpool doing something like that, but like the meta implication of it. And then afterwards with him, or even beforehand, because like when he's making fun of like Gambit's ability to talk and like just the way that he comes off, and like the rendition we got at Gambit was awesome. Him throwing the cards, the way he looks, the way he fights was sick. Like it was great. And then it capped it all off with Wesley Snipes going, you know, some other efforts are still trying to ice skate uphill. It's like, you know, that's a deep cut, but it was like, you know what? Thank you for that. Like that was good. That was great. Like
they did the perfect job with Gambit of making him of Channing Tatum being funny as shit with the way that he was delivering his lines. But then when the battle started, of him looking awesome when he was throwing those cards, man.
And then Daphne Keane too was X-23. Like we all knew that was coming, but it was great seeing her. Jennifer Garner getting her moments as Elektra. Like she trained for that. Like she still looked good as Elektra. I mean, and all the other like the cameos with Sabretooth was hilarious. Was funny with Toad. Blade just chops him down. Like, oh my god! Like,
Yeah.
then the Juggernaut, which it wasn't the original actor for the Juggernaut for X-Men: The Last Stand, but like just the fact you got the Juggernaut from that universe there, technically. Or and then apparently, if you go back and you watch it, like they even had like was it Olivia Munn's Psylocke, but even though it wasn't Olivia Munn, just she's in there. Lady Deathstrike was like, there was some deep cut, like Fox deep cuts that was in there. Even the dialogue with Johnny Storm and Chris Evans when he's talking about Reed and Sue from the Fantastic Four, like this was, like I said, this was the movie that we needed at the moment. That was just fun and was like, let's get excited about the MCU again. And then since it was right before Comic-Con, and then you had this movie going into the Comic-Con panel for that, where we got the announcements for Avengers and with Downey coming in as Doctor Doom, like, and the Fantastic Four, like this was good. This was a good move. This was a great project, that Marvel did, and they allowed Ryan Reynolds to do his thing, and Hugh Jackman coming in as Wolverine. Like it was a nice mixture of great things that was just awesome, and it turned out to be amazing.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree with all points on that. It was just a good time to have fun in the theater and just see some good stuff on screen. And that's sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes it doesn't need to be too crazy story wise, which they really did a good job of allowing you to have that fun and then throwing the story in with it. But I had a great time. It's the most fun I've had in a theater in a little while. So I was laughing the whole time.
I enjoyed it. It was so good, man. Like so many great moments I can point to. Like even the Deadpool Brigade or the Deadpool Squad.
Oh my god!
Like so even that with Blake Lively was doing the voice of Lady Deadpool, and apparently Rob Liefeld came out and said that she was the inspiration for Lady Deadpool in the comics, which I didn't know. Which again, all this stuff comes full circle. Like it's so funny. Like, and even the moments with the the nods to like the whole the cameos with the Wolverine variants. Like I can't even. The cavalry and everybody in the movie theater popped. Like it was so funny. Like just seeing that. Or the nods to the comics, the comic accurate Wolverine, the short one.
Oh my god. Like, it was insane.
They were having so much fun making this movie and just like rolling with it, with everything. It was perfect. It was so much fun.
I agree. And that's all we want. That's all we want is to just have fun and enjoy our stuff on here, man.
So, all right.
Well, on that note, on that positive note, I feel like we should just wrap this baby up right now. What do you got finishing up here? Let everyone know where they can find you on all your platforms.
Sure, yeah. So everybody could find me everywhere at Jakejames Lugo, like literally posting up content on Twitter at Jakejames Lugo, on Patreon at Jakejames Lugo, YouTube at Jakejames Lugo, where I upload frequent gaming related videos and other videos and YouTube shorts. I've been uploading a lot of those. Some of them have been blowing up. Like my one about Doom and Doom 2 Enhanced Edition blew up pretty well. Got over like 20K views in like a couple days, which was nice. And I just hit over 4,000 subs on YouTube, and I'm hoping to get past 10K at some point. I'm really hoping
that 4K mark on the YouTube.
Yeah, that's it finally. But I want to get past 10K and get more. But I upload frequent YouTube shorts, YouTube videos as well. TikTok, I'm getting closer to 4,000 as well over on TikTok. I'm trying to break through that to get past 10K as well, because so I could do more stuff on TikTok. But every day uploading on TikTok or tiktok.com/@JakeJamesLugo. Same thing with Threads @JakeJamesLugo, as well as also Instagram @JakeJamesLugo. I'm literally every day posting a brand new content, talking games, movies, TV, pop culture, Star Wars, and the whole nine. So check it out. Show some love, show some support, and enjoy all the content and just be cool and say hi.
Love it. And I always enjoy having these episodes with you on here. I always learn something new, whether it's in the gaming world or movie world. So we just have a good time every time you're on here, man. It's always a good time. So this is wrapping up Rule the Galaxy podcast. I'm not totally sure what chapter we're at, but I know we're not too far away from 200 episodes on this podcast. So
nice.
Pretty exciting. We're going to be going to the ICCC convention in October, which I can't wait to do. See a little people from the Star Wars universe and meet some fans out there.
My brother was just at Fan Expo in Chicago. He got to meet Mark Hamill, and he got to meet everybody there, but he got a picture of Mark Hamill. He showed me. I was like, damn.
Dude, that's wild.
Lucky.
That's next
level.
It
was a cool picture, though.
Next level stuff. Well, that's why we're in this, man. From me, from Jakejames Lugo, check out all of his stuff. Obviously, we have a great time talking every time he's on, and that's it from Rule the Galaxy podcast. Until the next time, may the Force be with you.
Take it easy.